Good evening, everyone. Before we do call to order, just as an FYI, we are live streaming tonight. That's that camera there. So the camera will see us, the presentation, which really I'll be replacing with that Word document last time, and my notes here. So, and then that will be recorded and made available for the public for the comments and the preferences of the group captured last time. Our agenda is a standard agenda. It really follows what we did last time and what we'll follow going forward. So I won't read these because we'll get to them. I'll let the chair also.
Meeting is called to order at 6:02 p.m. We will begin a roll call. Renton?
Garrett Greco. Stephen Benson.
Present.
Bobby Creighton.
Here.
Bill Shabino.
Here.
Ashley Morrow.
Here.
Rebecca Kerr. Here. Alan Combs.
Here.
Kathleen Shanahan. Here. Ron Cristaldi.
Here.
And Sue Carlton.
Here.
And Allison Hewitt.
Here. Thank you, and we're gonna move to public comment. So gradually rules are made for.
I think we can just move to public comment, 3 minutes per person. Have we had anyone sign up for public comment?
There's a sign issue?
Is that?
There's a sign issue. Yeah, there is a sign issue.
Is
I assume that was, is there a sign issue for public comment?
Well.
They
saying that
when they
public
come in.
comment?
I'm sorry, what?
What sign-in sheet are you using?
I don't know. I didn't do that last time, but I thought
Yeah.
someone might have put it out there
I
before.
mean,
No,
we don't always have that one.
no, we're good.
We don't always
So-
have one sitting down.
So does
Okay,
it?
so does anybody have any public comments?
I do.
All right. So we'll start with select meeting.
Good evening, Stephanie Pointer. First thing I want to address is, the whole contact city council attorney, the issue with the city council attorney reporting to, city council and not, the city attorney. All I have is 2 words to say, Dave Felder and Goose. I sent you all the supporting information as to why it would be a conflict. I'm not saying that it will be this week, but who knows, things change. I sent information to support, you guys asked a couple questions at the last meeting, and I sent you information and news articles to support, to answer the questions that you asked during the meeting. So make sure you're checking your stuff before you come, because I spend a lot of time gathering that, because if you're asking the question, I want you to have the answer, and it should go to everybody, not just one person. The pink sheet is my disposition on, portion 2.02. We do have folks who want to come into the city and run for office, and we do have them filed, and they do tell a story about where they live, or they don't, anyway. But the bottom line is it happened last summer, it happened in 2023, and we have somebody who wants to run for mayor now who lives in Lithia. So we really do need to address that, and the election commission really didn't want to touch it. I rarely talk about me being the president of FAN when I stand up and speak publicly in front of city council or any other public forum, but in this particular case, I'm going to. I gave you a yellow sheet of paper. It has a letter from a member of this board that was sent out to at least 3 of my neighborhood leaders, and they contacted me immediately and asked me if it was appropriate. And my response to that is on the back of that paper. I'm trying to understand why anyone from this committee would take it upon themselves to send things out to neighborhood leaders when we have a system for that in the city of Tampa. It's called neighborhood empowerment. Okay, Janelle has a whole crew. She sends out emails once a week, once every 2 weeks. So there's no reason for somebody from this board to be siphoning off information. Not everybody here has to agree to that kind of stuff. You can't just make up your own rules. This is a committee and you have to work together on it, and it's not appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll try to do it. Okay.
Miss you ladies first. Yes, Madam Chair.
Good afternoon. So as a part of my alternates, we are able to ask questions without your comments. So I'm just going to make sure I write down my comments to you as we move forward. I'd like to ask to consider that at least one city council board meeting after 5. There's often many times people take off work to come to public comments at 9 o'clock in the morning, and they don't get to public comment until 11 a.m. And if you are someone who is working an hourly job, but you still want to make sure that you are impactful and participating in the city, these 9 o'clock meetings are very challenging. Most of the 5 o'clock meetings are land use meetings. Those land use meetings have lawyers that come there who get paid by the hour. So why can't we switch that and let the lawyers who usually work during the day at least have once a month, they come during the day, and then in the evenings, the other people who, when they get off work and they still want to be active participating citizens, that they're able to come and participate in the process of saying that. So I just ask you to consider that at least one meeting a month is allowed to be after 5, so the citizens can participate. Thank you.
Thank you. Joseph, Mr. Joseph Citro.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Joseph Citro, 33611 for the record. Just a couple things that you had talked about last time. Number one, department heads living within the city of Tampa and or Hillsborough County. If you took a direct line from City Hall, the northern part of New Tampa, that's 22 miles. So if you're going to say that they have to live in Hillsborough County, a great candidate for the city of Tampa's department head could live in downtown St. Petersburg. If you take that 22 miles. Also, I would like to talk about y'all as a board. You made a very good point that you should be talking to the people. You should be hearing what people have to say. Also, with increasing population, with more people moving to the city, do we need more council people? That could be possibly true. Downtown, Channel Side, parts of Ybor City, Gas Works is coming. West Tampa is growing. But as Ms. Carlton over here, when she was with Hillsborough County Charter Review, found out there's more than just adding 2 new people. You also have to have 2 new aides, plus benefits for everybody. Now, is our council chambers going to support 2 new members? Is Hannah Street going to be our new city hall? Think about those sort of things. Yes, our population is growing. We may need more representation soon, if not 10 years from now. But take everything into consideration while you're thinking about that. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, board members.
Thank you.
Here.
Anyone else with public comment? Can I make a public comment? Yes.
So I did say last week, about how we're gonna get public comments here. I did send out a note to a neighborhood list and just asked them for public comments. I'm sorry, I don't know the woman in the ground. I don't know, I'm not a city hall activist, active person. I run businesses, I come from the community. So any of my misstatements or whatever that are misinterpreted, I did listen to city council the other night. I sent them all a note this afternoon. I don't know, I mean, I asked for the neighborhood list, I sent out a list and said, this group is meeting for the next 6 months. If you have comments on how the city of Tampa charter could be improved, please send them in and we'll look at them. Like I'm never gonna run for office. I'm not positioning to do anything else. I've never served in anything but heart. So I'm not I know people think that a lot of people have other agendas. I do not. But that was the intent behind. I thought I explained that 2 weeks ago when we met. I sent it out. That's what I did.
You did mention it 2 weeks ago, and everyone on this board commented affirmatively that we all wanted to reach out.
And I directed them all to the public.
With the understanding that if there are comments.
Okay.
So we
To be recognized.
I have a question.
We gotta
Madam Chair, I
pause,
got a question.
we gotta pause with, is there gonna be a
So can we open?
session, or do you want public comment?
I'll call it a public comment.
Go ahead.
Okay, we'll just play that, okay?
There you go.
It's silly, actually, but I did not receive any materials, and I check every other day or so from the lady who spoke a few moments ago. And I don't think, I know Stephen didn't either, so I don't know if there's did anyone? You did.
I did personally,
I did not receive any, and maybe there could be a better way to make sure we did receive them, because I certainly would, if citizens of our community are going to take the time to put those together, I will certainly read them. But I didn't see any.
Thank you, all right, Rebecca Kirk. Okay, girl.
sorry, I'm not waiting to be recognized, I really am, I can try to do better at that. So since I've been recognized, I just want to say, I agree that, I don't know what the trigger is, but there was a new folder that popped up that said public comments somewhere on the SharePoint, I don't know when it popped up, I saw it today. So it's there, and I don't know what the best way is to see that, because if you're doing your prep work, like most people probably were besides me earlier, as we all should, I don't know when it popped up.
I think that was implemented earlier on to automatically pull in the form staff comments from the website. So that should, when you open what's in there, show you, there's also a link on the left. I think the first time it was manual, but after that it's automatic. Any public comments that come through that channel get added to an inventory of comments that you all have access to in our current structure.
Thank y'all so much for, one more public comment,
I just didn't want to miss the opportunity if we're,
It's a popular thing.
I know. It doesn't have to be now, you might address it in a moment, but I wanted to make a few comments about the conduct of the meeting. Partly the role of the chair, partly how are we gonna manage somebody who's online, how are we gonna minimize when people cutting in, if someone starts to speak. The person online wants to go, we don't get our opportunity, so you might address all of that, I'll withhold the rest of my statements. But Madam Chair, if I may, at a certain point be recognized to add anything if my questions aren't answered.
Okay, right, when we get to that part, in discussion with the facility. Okay, entertain a motion to approve the prior meeting minutes.
So there's January 20th.
January 20th, 2026.
Second.
Motion's been made, properly seconded, I'll
I have a
say.
discussion.
Madam Chair,
Yes, discussion?
yes, Madam Chair, if I might. There were just two things that I thought were typos that I wanted to point out. On page 2, and I apologize, Rob, for not getting these to you in advance, but on page 2, under the heading Resolution 2025-1044, it says that I made a motion to require a majority vote, and then open parentheses says with a minimum of 6 votes. I think it should say super majority vote. The word super is missing. And then on the next page, on page 3, under selection of chairperson and vice chairperson, when in the second paragraph we have the votes as 5, 4, and for the current chair and 3 for me. I think it should have been 6 for Ashley and 3 for me. The numbers don't add up, and of course everyone needs to vote. So I think it was 6-3 there. I think that's just a typo. Those were the only other suggestions I had.
Thank you, Bill?
There was it's another one, I didn't send you, selection of chairperson and vice chairperson, I didn't accept the nomination.
I need that change. I don't have a little bit, we got our lines crossed, because I need.
Must not, but I had pointed out that super majority in the email to Bob, so I would also reflect it, if you look at it, it says I accepted the nomination.
Yeah, no,
I nominated you, Alan. You accepted it.
But because I did specifically make that change and no change that Bobby recommended. I didn't catch the one that Juan mentioned.
And that was,
Thank you, and Bobby?
so that was gonna be, my question, are comments to you gonna be reflected in the updated draft? Or-
What I'm more worried about is I made the changes, saved it into a meeting in this folder, folder. It's potential that that was maybe printed from a different version that Francie had handed to you.
Okay.
So apologies, I didn't realize that you guys were just saying things that I changed those things. So the actual minutes will reside in the folder titled the name of the meeting. So for a second, third, and fourth. So we'll go back, make sure that version reflects these changes. And we'll avoid this problem next time, make sure we're connected on what was the print from.
Thank you so much for everyone's updates. Any more? Right,
February 10th?
yeah, February 10th. Should I do the motion again? And y'all can look at the updated?
Well, I don't think we need to make those changes before we can do another.
Right.
I think,
We can do
I
it.
think, Madam Chair, if everybody agrees to the changes, I think we can entertain a motion to approve the minutes as amended, and then it would just be memorializing them. If it be,
That would be better for me too, when you put that to bed.
Okay, cool. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes with amendments.
So moved.
Second.
The motion's been made and properly seconded. I'll approve, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say-
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. All right, we will approve the minutes with amendments for January 20th, sorry. All right, we're gonna move to discuss potential Tampa City charter amendments.
We have February 10th minutes as
Oh,
well.
sorry,
Which,
a motion, I'll entertain a motion to approve the February 10th, 2026 meeting agenda. Motion been made and properly seconded. I'll,
That was a point of discussion.
yeah, one discussion, sorry.
Just for future reference, there was a memo that came out as a result of some of the discussions of that meeting, regarding some of the members' desire to invite, various speakers, et cetera, but that discussion wasn't reflected in the minutes. So I just wanna be sure that, people are looking at documents and they see the memo goes out. I mean, I know it's recorded and they can watch it if they want to, but just so that it's captured in the minutes, like why memos go out as a result of our discussion, just that's included in the minutes in the future. I didn't catch it, maybe I overlooked it, if you checking now, Rob?
Yeah, I made reference to the fact that we took notes, we provisionally accepted certain sections of the articles we discussed, and then made the comment for the other sections. We took notes, and those photographs of the flip charts were attached to them. So
So that is something on a flip chart?
yeah, these minutes were accompanied by the photographs of the actual flip chart paper notes that I took, and then I summarized all of that and told you about that in the tracking document we used with more detail around things like action items, questions you had, decisions where you said. So we summarized it in minutes. Those will flow through a process for either leaving sections alone or changing. What's my thought on that? Otherwise, this becomes a lot more detailed and potentially including all the notes from that as well. We can do that as well. So,
Another discussion.
All right. Thank you. So,
Madam Chairman, can I just one more clarification? On the votes that for you and Stephen, are those the right votes in terms of the second page? So I think you both voted no. I just want to make sure it reflects what you guys voted last week for Tuesday.
yes. So the first motion?
The second section. It just says Stephen voted no.
Mine was not, I'm not sure about the third,
This,
but mine is correct.
Okay,
yes, correct.
okay.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Yeah. All right. Motion to approve the minutes of the meeting minutes from February 10th. All right. Thank you. Motion's been made, properly seconded. All approve, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Yeah, all right, we're gonna move on to, the city charter review. And Rod is going to have the floor, he's gonna facilitate the remainder of the meeting.
Thank you, everyone. I'm getting better at this. It's good. Okay. As we mentioned, we now have a hybrid meeting structure. We have a camera in the back live streaming. Ron, you said you can hear us loud and clear?
Yes.
And you can you see both the display monitor and the flip chart on your view?
Sorry, I was on mute. I can see the display very well, at least on my screen. The agenda is still up on the screen. The chart is a little small, but I can follow along here. And
I'll
I'm
try to make it a
fine.
little bit bigger for you, Ron. As a matter of procedure, as we're going through, if I happen to be looking at the group, because that's going to be my tendency, just please speak up. I might not see your hand.
Got it.
Okay. Otherwise, I think this is going to work. So thank you to everyone who helped us get this set up. You mentioned something I just want to hit real quick before we jump into the show. We'll do last time we did this stuff.
Right, so the ground rules that you laid out in the beginning were one speaker at a time, ways to be recognized. I kind of had in my mind to be following more of a Robert's Rules of Order. I was interrupted several times during discussions, even when I was pausing momentarily to formulate a question. It's not exactly clear to me how we're conducting the meetings. Like if I call a point of order, if I get interrupted, what is the parliamentary foundation for that if we have a chair who's not directing the meeting, it's Stuart who's the one facilitating? The lesson that I took away from our first meeting was, if you speak first, you get to speak the most. If you don't wait to be recognized or rewarded with more time. And I don't think that's fair if everybody here was appointed. We show up, we do our homework, and if somebody gets a jump on you, then you have to take a back seat. So I just want to figure out how do we do this? How do we make it more equitable, I guess, is my question.
It's a good question, and it's a feedback item for me. It's my job to make sure all of you are heard. That was one of the objectives from the beginning. And that's going to have a practical challenge, of course, when people want to be heard too. I even thought at one point I've seen where someone gets a big bright orange ball and they're the only ones who can speak. Trying to avoid some of that because it gets a little weird. But what I would ask is that I keep in mind what you said, and I will just be more firm with the group and try to protect your speaking time and everyone else's speaking time. As I mentioned before, if you do want to speak, this is hard because everyone actually raises his or her hand. And that was happening during, so that makes it a little tricky for me because I'm trying to focus and think about who goes next. But with your permission, I'd like to just try to be firmer as a facilitator to protect people's speaking time. And ask the rest of you to please do the same as a courtesy, because that's really the ultimate way we'll be most productive when we do this. I will also say, when you're speaking about what you're speaking about, just be mindful of how much time you're speaking, because everyone else may have as much to say. And that's just a judgment call. Mindful. Does that work for you for tonight?
Yeah, that's okay.
I appreciate the feedback though. Now I get to be tough. See how that works? But thank you. And I do think we're getting better at this. Hi, sorry.
Could I just say one thing, jumping on what you said? I thought it went really well last time, but if anyone doesn't, especially if it's me jumping in, please let me know that you weren't finished talking. It's not my intention to cut anyone off. I didn't think anyone is trying to do that, but we are. Just let me know and I'm sure anyone would be happy to back off and let you finish your thought. I don't think anyone's trying to do that. That's a really good point about how to manage.
And we can't talk outside of this, but we did have a conversation about it, and we were trying to figure out how to manage this meeting. So what we came to was I'll do the meeting at the beginning, and then during his facilitation time, he'll be facilitating. And try to go by his rules, while he's writing, don't raise your hand so that you can't see what order you guys were raising your hands. And we can see, but he's doing a lot. He's thinking, he's writing, and he's like, okay, we'll put their hand up. And now we have it on camera, so let's just try to be, let's work together to get this done. And I think y'all did a great job last time we got through it by 8:30, so let's do that at 10. Let's get to it.
Wow. I have two challenges in front of me.
You did great.
Oh no, you guys did too. That's a good conversation. So let's jump in. What I wanted to do is cover. And again, I think we can all see, and Ron's over to the right. I wanted to just recap from last time. I did send all of this to you. I hope you had a chance to look at it. I was hoping you did, because if any of this was wrong, it would be really important to know. I didn't get any feedback. I'll take that as we should be okay. But here's the thing. We haven't done any motions on any of this yet. So we have time to get to a point where we're really convinced that's what we want to do. But I want to recap this. I want to give you an update on a couple of the requests you made. And then what we're going to, in fact, do is we're going to focus on 4 and 5. As I said last time today, we're going to have to come back to some of these things because we need some more help, and I'll explain that in a minute. So when we went through Article 1, we had no changes through essentially the entire article. When we got to, I'm gonna just shrink this just a little bit. Okay. We got to Article 2, 2.01, City Council composition districts. We had a conversation around district size and population growth, and the request was for securing expertise to help all of you learn more about those trade-offs and what that involves. We are working on that. Part of the reason I say we're working on that is Ken and I had to go back to the powers that be to really talk about these extra out of scope, we're doing everything we can. These extra requests that we didn't have a process to fill. So we are going to be working on this and other things that I'll explain to you in a minute. And of course, we said to research that on your own, which has proven really fruitful. If we get down to 2.02, we talked about pros and cons. We will come back to this when we focus on the article. I think these things lend themselves to focus, so I didn't want to like hit that and talk over it for. But I want to make sure that there were no changes there because it wasn't clear to me in my notes. We had some language changes. Again, these were Ken's items. When it came to the conversation around the attorneys, I want to spend just a minute or two on this. It was, I think, the last board meeting, the council voted to basically instruct us to, I'm going to try to word this properly, Ken may have to help me, but essentially when it came to the council attorney, they want to retain that and not fundamentally change it. I'm paraphrasing. As to getting the city and council attorneys to attend, that may still occur. The council attorney needs the green light to do so, and the city attorney's position to do it. They both would rather come together, so you could hear both of those viewpoints and be able to juxtapose what you're hearing, and it feeds into the conversation we had. So we're working on that as well. Not tonight, hopefully next time. Keep it posted. When it comes to some of the research type activities like prior charters, actually Scott, the city attorney, is going to do a lot of that legwork for us. I know I didn't answer all of your emails on this. I know, Rebecca, we traded some. You did some digging and dropped it into a folder, but he's going to go out and purposely collect all of the prior charters and documentation around how and why they were changed, as he will for other city-specific items. So when we talk about experts in redistricting, that might be someone from the property appraiser's office. But for city items, he's, in his words, he sort of volunteered to do it. So more to come from that. Like I said, I think part of this is growing pains in the sense that we're realizing we need things we didn't think we need. Now we need a process to get them, but we're working that angle and I think we're getting there. We had some language in state chapter reference actions here. No changes to the end of for 210, 211, 212, 213. No changes to 214 with an answer to no to the question from council. And that we still have an outstanding action around the residency requirements to see if we should mirror those for the clerk's office. So this will be where I take whatever I write on that flip chart and capture, and this will directly feed eventually into amendments that you want or no changes, which is equally valid. We just need to know. So my intention tonight is, with some of those folks coming back, with some luck, we revisit those and run this to ground next meeting, the first meeting in March. But that tonight we're moving on to new content. So it's just working out the way it's working out. Any questions on that, on the process? But I wanted you to see, I did try to make sure we captured everything. Okay.
So as we maybe learn from new speakers or advance through the charter, we might come into issues that link back to things we've already discussed that maybe we can come to a decision on, but because we're learning something new, we're seeing it in a different light in a different part of the charter, we might want to open that back up,
Yes.
even if it was a no vote the first time. So is this like a sealed envelope where
No.
once we lick it, we're done, or can we go back and have further discussions if we voted no the first time?
It's a great question, because when I started this, what I thought would happen is we would take motions to accept or change things, and I said we would have an opportunity when we packaged it all for everyone to revisit it again. I don't see any harm in that. The alternative is we just collaboratively look at the comments we're making, agree to them, and at the end, revisit them to do it one time. So I haven't really decided what to do, but I'm kind of leaning towards the latter because of even what happened with these. I thought tonight we'd run to the ground, we can't, you have to go back. So my feeling is, as long as I'm accurately capturing your decisions in this forum, we just keep going, we bounce back. At this point, nothing's been voted on, but we've got a journaling basically of our decisions. And then when we get it done, we review them all one more time together, and then we say, yep, this is what we as a group want to do for advising the council, and we do a motion to accept. That's where I'm leaning for the moment. Because ultimately, we're gonna end up, like you said, backing out of prior, we're basically undoing our prior work. I don't think we need to. I think some of this may be fluid. Some of you may even do more research and learn something that you didn't know before.
So that was my question. We're going through the charter in a linear sort of way. If things come up that may not be related to where we are in terms of the charter, do we, at what point can we introduce that as an amendment? And more specifically, I mean, there could be actions the city council takes that may result in a request for us to look at an area. It may not have happened yet. So can we introduce an amendment based upon what's happening, aside from the linear way that we're going through the chart?
Absolutely. What I would probably do is, if, for example, something came up that, hit one of the articles or sections further in, I would, and this could be between you, just send them to me. I'll make a note in that, like I do with the council questions. Need to speak about this, a very detailed note saying we need to talk about this specific thing. What I wouldn't want to do is bounce around, just because I think these sections are so, like, they're all related, like they're kind of standalone and you need to kind of get inside them. But if you send me any of those or you raise anything in the meetings, we'll take a note to say, come back to this. I won't let us forget.
And just, we were talking about the charter, and not the charter, sorry, the council changing the numbers. The last time being the 1940s with the number change, we were discussing history. It has to do with the white municipal party, so tell them to look into that. As far as changing the numbers from 12 to 7, 9, all that stuff. That's why they were changing the numbers. We were asking what was the criteria for them changing the numbers. That's what it was in the 40s, which it has nothing to do with now.
Okay.
But if we decide we do want to increase, we have to set some other criteria. We can't really base off history, because that's not what we're doing right now. So just so whoever's doing it, Scott, is that Mr. Scott?
Yeah, Scott's doing the research for us on the prior charters.
Okay.
And if we have more requests for him, we can just channel those through like we did this last batch. Sounds like he's gonna get on them pretty quickly, even though it's dark.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want them to go through like a whole book of charters, like trying to find that rule, but that's what it was.
Are you talking about the charter, the numbers of people on
The
the?
council.
Okay, that went from 12 to 7 to 9.
Yeah, it's 12 to 9, to now it's 7, yeah.
Okay.
So, Rob, can I just ask one
Yeah, I was
clarifying
gonna ask you,
question?
Rod, if you had any comments.
Yeah, just one clarifying question. I understand over the last 2 weeks, we didn't get an opportunity to amend anything, but I wasn't clear. Is what you were saying is that we would talk about these and have them philosophically identified, and then toward the end, we would eventually get one revised charter document? I'm a little concerned with an approach that would not let us see the actual charter language till the months and months down the road, because for the lawyers in the room, the analogy for me is, if we're negotiating now a term sheet, which is conceptual, the devil's still in the details in the actual document. So what are your thoughts, Rob, of when we would see red line type actual language on some of these things that we did agree that we would like to change.
Right, so I think last time we never really landed on a definite. I don't know, we'd have to look, but change this or change that, but we had action items, for example, for Ken to come back with things.
Yeah.
What I'd like to do, Ron, is use those action items for him to do his actions on those, to bring us back, for example, I'm gonna scroll back here real quick. We had, in actions, update language to include pursuant to state law or similar for 2.08. That's it. My job will be to hound Ken for that and to eventually get it. Drop it in here, revisit with the group, keep it, memorialized, and then get you what you're saying, Ron, when there's a change. So essentially, anything that you decided you need to change, we will be doing on an ongoing basis tied to action items. And those will be discussed and revisited when we eventually say, yes, that's correct. We just don't have any of those actions completed for you to see today.
Got it. But Ken is working on it, and maybe at the next meeting we would have some of that.
Yes, when we go back, since we have to go back to the other articles anyway, I'll follow up with Ken on this, so we come back to you with more than just hopefully guest speakers and more research. We will have actually tracked these down and got answers to the group.
Okay, and then one last question. I think in the section that dealt with council, I think I understood you to say that Marty Selby and Scott Steady might be coming together and they're coordinating and talking about that. Before you said that, did you say something about the city council had some comment on that issue?
Yes, the city council, I believe, voted to advise, and correct me here, Ken, to advise this group to essentially, I'm gonna paraphrase this poorly, but
I have the exact wording.
could you please do it for me?
The city council will not entertain any changes to the city council attorney position.
Did you hear that wrong?
Yeah, but I mean, is that, Ken, is that legally appropriate? I mean, we're supposed to act and make a recommendation, and then it is their purview to act or not act on the recommendation, but can they, it seems inappropriate for either the mayor or council to tell this commission in advance, we're not allowed to make a recommendation on a particular provision if we so choose to do that. It just seems contrary to the charter and the purpose of the commission. We're supposed to be talking about things and making whatever recommendations we by majority vote want to make. Can they legally tell us we can't make a recommendation? Anyone, I mean, council or the mayor.
They said is you can make all the recommendations you want. They're not interested in hearing anything about the city council attorney. So I think we take it as we perceive it. I'm not going to opine on their legal actions or anything like that. It's simply the fact that you are an advisory board making a recommendation to city council. You now have the express feelings of the city council regarding that time.
I don't know about my colleagues, but just that seems, I'll let it go, but it just seems inappropriate for meddling with the council on substantive matters here in our deliberations. But okay, you've clarified what I've asked. Thank you. And that's all I have.
Good, we're all being so
Thank
friendly,
you.
no one will speak.
Bill first and then it was me.
So,
Bill.
Just quickly in response to Ron's comments about seeing the final draft, I'm assuming that we'll have plenty of time to look at the final drafts, the
Yes.
final proposed language. And I don't anticipate, we made great progress last time, we're gonna be hurried at all to
No.
have it too quick of a vote. So
everyone will have ample time to make sure I understood you, make sure Ken understood you, and make sure what would come back to you is what you want it to be. Gotcha. So I can commit to that. Good luck.
yes,
I have two responses to Ron. One, yes, I agree. I would love to see what the legal department has prepared In fact, I have a motion that I'm gonna be making at the end of our meeting regarding that in new business. I have a memo right in front of me here that says that the legal department will provide the non-substantive changes to the charter by X and Y date. As far as I know, that never made it to council, it hasn't, as far as I know, from our last meeting, hasn't made it to any of you, there's never been a memo regarding that sent to any of us, and that was from October of last year. The other thing is, in that same memo from October 3rd, I have it highlighted right here, the city of Tampa administration does not recommend that the new charter review commission make any substantive changes to the charter, with one exception, and then that's listed. So in a way, we already have direction from the administration about what they want us to do in this charter. They say right here, does not recommend that you make any substantive changes. They don't want to see anything change at all, so. I mean, if city council wants to put their opinion out there, we have the opinion of the administration to go by too.
Well, just.
Yeah, let me just ask, let me ask.
Hey, Ron, 1 second, we have someone.
Yeah, sure.
Just speak, thank you.
Yeah, I was just gonna, in response, I guess, to both comments, I believe that we did capture on the board though, that there would be a pro-con discussion. And I don't believe, well, there hasn't been any change in direction amongst this group yet about that. So when we get to it, we can decide how we want to tackle that item since we have documented that previously, unless somebody makes a motion to change that. So just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that was still the status. It's.
I'm gonna make a comment, and I have to speak. You know, we're an advisory group. So to your point, what we may or may not be encouraged to do or not do really is interesting to know. It may influence how much effort we put into it, but in my opinion, we look at this in our roles as a fresh set of eyes and opinions with the intent to improve the charter. That gets eventually approved by everyone and served up, and the council still has to decide what it wants to do. So I think that's our charge. We move forward. We know some preferences, but I think your voices matter and we need to capture what this group wants. I don't think I spoke. And because we're advisory, I don't really think that does anything other than represent your wishes. So.
Yeah, I thought our conversation around the city, I was surprised because I listened to the city council on this. They voted unanimously with the statement that Ken just made, so they were very affirmed about it. But I thought it was more about like who speaks for the city or who decides for the city. That was our question last time, was because we were getting this like, what attorney is the final say, I guess, you know, and that's what I thought contextually we were sort of saying, well, does this city council attorney like report to the city attorney? I don't know, because I don't know the structure, so I don't know if they have separate jurisdictions and they sign separate documents. So that was my interest in trying to figure out what authority lies where and who's responsible for what. But I think the city council should have an advisory attorney or an attorney. I just was more curious about how the decisions get made and who spoke for them.
My take last time was all of you just wanted to learn more.
Yeah.
Right, because the language that you saw left some gaps in the way we truly understand things like roles and responsibilities, who the client is, overlaps, spans of authority. I think all of you just wanted to understand that better. And you even spoke to the rule we set, which is always start with the problem we're trying to solve, but that may have been unclear in the past. So I feel like we continue doing what we've been doing and eventually see what gets fleshed out when we have hopefully both attorneys here to help educate you. Is everyone good with us jumping into Article 4, with that being the last comment? Okay, great, thank you. Whew. We're off, Ashley, we're off to the races. Okay, Ron, we're moving on to Article 4. I'll just let you know that. I guess you can see us. 4 and 5 are pretty heavy sections. There's a lot going on, right? So we'll see how far we go. If we get through all of it, that would be great, but let's let it play out. I'm going to paraphrase as I've done. I'm going to, as you can see, there's a lot here. So bear with me. I'm going to cover some of these questions, and then I'm going to start writing down some of the thoughts that all of you have. So in this section, the mayor is the administrative and executive heads, represents the city, other governments, elected at large, must be resident and elected for 1 year prior to start of term, and continue as resident during 2 consecutive term limits, administers laws, ordinances, contracts, etc., directly controls and supervises departments, appoints and removes all officers and employees, sets compensation for same, manages and controls city property, power to issue executive orders, organizing city government, setting administrative directives, etc., advises council as to financial conditions and needs of the city, and furnishes info, data, and advice to city council. City council can consult with departments, but cannot interfere with the conduct of departments, officers, and employees. Like last time, and some of you have the charter in front of you, when we get to these, if there's something that I missed by summarizing, we can cover that. Council questions. Similar to the US constitutional provisions for president, should a mayor be limited to 2 4-year terms? I will presume this means in total after 2 consecutive, because we did talk about a 2 consecutive term limit. Should Tampa City Council have the authority to override the oral policy or executive orders with a vote of at least 5 members? Since the mayor in his or her role as mayor does not have a voting conflict, how should the mayor handle and disclose conflicts of interest? Should a process be created to arbitrate settle disputes between the mayor and city council, since there is no judicial branch of the city? And should new positions or salary changes above a certain percentage after budget approval require majority vote approval by Tampa City Council? So those were 5 questions related to this section. So that's the summary of it in total. Any volunteers to start the conversation on section 4? I'm actually going to move this over here, guys, because I thought it looked better there, but it's not.
Can you zoom in a little bit?
I can. Just trying to deal with the real estate and.
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep going. Yeah. I can move it over a little bit. Bear with me, guys.
Yeah, maybe move the camera to the other side of the screen, where Mary is, can you drag them over?
I can try.
Put them over there,
Of course, I'm afraid it's all gonna blow up.
all the way, and then zoom in. No, that's fine. It's okay. Just click on that.
You know,
No, just click on, okay, and zoom in. Thank you. You can take Mayor off, because you don't.
is that big enough?
Yeah.
I can't do much better. So if I could, that might be a while.
You're doing great.
Okay. Okay, so.
You can see it.
All right, I'll go one by one like we did before, get you guys warmed up. Any issues with first floor around mayor being sole administrative and executive head? I'm gonna be pretty quick on this to see if anyone jumps up and down. Represents the city to the public and other governments. How about elected at large must be resident 1 year prior to term? We talked a little bit about that last time. Stephen has the floor.
I do have a question about the term administrative, because there is a reference to the purpose of councils issuing resolutions as being for administrative actions, so, I mean, certain administrative actions, so maybe this is just, I'm not a legal person, so I would just appreciate if anybody has any insight as to the use of that term and how it relates to council's limited ability to issue resolutions for certain things that are called administrative as well.
I think the best way to put it is a resolution falls into place where they don't need to act by ordinance. It fills that gap as far as the actions they can take. It doesn't, the fact that they may be administrative in nature doesn't then trump the idea that we have a strong layered form of government. And that's what the combined section here is about.
And as I understand it, Stephen, and there's a difference between passing a administrative ordinance, meaning setting something.
One second. let's let, Rob acknowledge whoever's speaking, supposed to speak next.
Sorry, Ron, I was trying to take a note when you started. Thank you for the assist. It's good. Go ahead, Ron. Can you summarize again on this thing?
Sure. Thank you. What I was saying is that I think there's a difference between passing like an ordinance or resolution that is administrative in nature and then implementing that. So just like Congress can pass a law, the president then has the authority to execute it and operationalize it. I read that provision in the charter to mean that the executive who's responsible for implementing the action is, and the sole person is the mayor. It doesn't limit or prohibit the council from passing an ordinance or resolution. It's just the difference between setting the policy and implementing the policy. So they both could be administrative in nature, but this is suggesting that the mayor is the administrative head for purposes of implementing the policy.
Stephen, you asked the question, are you satisfied with what you heard? Do you need more info?
No, was there any, yes, I'm fine too.
I would like clarification from the city attorney on that question.
Okay.
It's an important question, and that was not my understanding.
And I'm sorry,
And I don't speak for the city, so I don't know.
I'm sorry to take the floor back, but there's also, it also says, there's a caveat that says unless the charter provides that specific administrative power to council herein. But when I search, I don't see any other administrative powers provided to council. So I can find this specific section, but I found that to be confusing because I'm like, well, where else are they giving a power to council? I don't see it in there, you know?
Okay.
So I was, asking myself, was there something in here that was removed at one point and they didn't take out this reference? And so just some background would be helpful if it exists.
So I took the action to do what you asked, Rebecca, and to get some clarification. Anything else to add to the request on that item from you?
It's a very important question, and I don't think that the charter was meant to read that they can do things in the administrative realm by resolution that they couldn't do by legislation. My understanding of the charter is different than that, so since my understanding is meaningless, I think we should
We'll get some more information from you.
clarification from the people who are interpreting that.
Okay, so we need more information. I think that'll help the group.
I just have a question about, how are we acknowledging when Ron, because, sorry, Ron, I had to call to order because Rebecca had her hand up first, but you started talking, so how are you gonna acknowledge him? Like, does he just start talking, or how should he deal with that?
Well, that's a challenge that I'll need your help with, because I can't see him and you guys at the same time.
Okay,
So at times, it's just gonna be a little clunky.
okay,
And Ron, sometimes I may ask you to repeat yourself, or if I get you at perfect time, I may ask the group just to listen because no one else is speaking. So just work with me on it. It's just it's one of the challenges of doing it this way.
no worries.
We'll be okay. I think we're fine. We haven't had any.
You can raise his hand.
Yeah.
Raise your hand when you wanna talk about it.
Yeah.
It's simple,
Wait a minute.
Thanks, son.
If you guys tell me his hand's raised, we'll be good.
Right.
Right, let's just pause. We're spending quite a bit of time on this. Is there anything more anyone wants to substantively add about this particular issue? Yes or no before I continue? Rob, is that a yes?
Yes, I
Okay.
had a question,
All right, good.
and maybe Ken can help me answer it. So the city council plays various roles in conjunction with the administration, such as the mayor requires the approval of the council to remove the clerk. Thought that was interesting. The mayor require, let's see, 2/3 approval to establish, create, combine, or abolish departments and boards. Are those things that are done by ordinance? Or are these just kind of like artifacts of the charter, where the council has this, I guess, semi-administrative role, or how does that work?
Well, it's not a semi-administrative, how, the charter puts limits on how the mayor can act in certain ways. So you start from the idea that the mayor is the administrative head, controls the departments, et cetera. You can put exceptions to that, and the charter has provisions that are exceptions to the general rule, and gives a role for council to then participate. So the mayor would schedule those as agenda items, that would be voted on by council. And the documentation they use, whether it's a resolution or simply a vote, is up to their own process in terms of the charter.
So an example of that would be for certain department head roles, the council needs to approve that appointment, whereas others, they don't.
Right, and on the federal level, think of it as a confirmation kind of process, where it's advice and consent, something like that.
Okay. But Bill, did you have your hand up? I want to make sure anyone else.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, we're going to continue the conversation. We have an action item around that. We're moving on to the notion of a 1-year resident and elector before start of term, and of course, continuing. Earlier, we had a discussion last time, which was similar around extending that or not for other roles. I think it goes to the council, for council members. Any additional comments to this, similar thoughts, questions, desires for that to change, or are we okay with that as it stands?
Just to say for consistency, when we should go back to the other point, to make a footnote that, you know, it should also apply here if we decide we want to do that.
Okay, so this is resident requirement. Should be consistent with Article 2. Okay, thank you. 2 consecutive term limit. And I'm going to tie this over here because they're related. So we talk about terms. Currently, 2 consecutive terms. This should ever be limited to 2 4-year terms. I think what this question is, and help me if I'm wrong, is are they saying here that so currently, if I'm not mistaken, the mayor can have 1 term, have a break, come back and do another term, and then a third, that's it, you know, in other words, the only requirement is 2, or is it 2 in total?
Presently, it's the mayor can have back-to-back terms.
Yeah.
Then cannot run again.
Right.
But then could run.
Right.
In the future.
Okay, so that is,
Right,
yes,
another
question.
back-to-back.
In other words, it's not
Well, council
2
is asking.
4-year terms and that's it, regardless of it's here, here, or here, and here. Right now, it could be many, many more terms if there's a break into it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, that's my own understanding. So currently, it's just this, and they can come back and run another 2 consecutive terms with a gap. Thoughts from the group on whether that is okay as it stands, or do you consider or advise on additional restrictions? Thoughts? Or any comments at all, we're good with that? Rebecca has the floor.
I'm okay with how it stands, and if there's strong feelings otherwise, I will be happy to elucidate on that, if not, I'll be sure.
Bill?
I agree with Rebecca.
It seems to be good word. Okay, so right now what I'm getting directly in my vibe is we're okay with this for now, correct?
Yes.
Correct, okay. This one's more
And
general.
again,
I'm sorry. Ron, thank you. We're getting.
Yeah.
Ron, go ahead. You're Ashley, you know, say you there, man. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I am comfortable with the status quo and just wanted to note that to my knowledge, the only time in history we've had somebody serve 2 terms and sit out and serve again was Garrett's grandfather, who I was very glad to vote for during his 2nd term. I was a little boy, I think, when he served as his 1st term, but he was out of office for more than 20 years, and the people of Tampa wanted him back after a long term, and he served a great 2nd set of 8 years, and so I'm super supportive based on kind of the historic experience we've had in the city on that.
Thanks, Ron. Great. We're aligned on that. Moving on. Some of these are more general, but I'll read them for thoroughness. And this goes to the administers thing, so I know that's related, but just to keep it consistent. Administers laws, ordinances, contracts, franchises, acquisition, and disposition of property. There may be some more detail in the charter itself. I'm gonna read a couple of these and then ask that it directly controls the supervisor's departments. I'll stop there for a minute. Are we okay so far with all of that? Any thoughts there? Okay. Appoints or removes all officers and employees and sets compensation for all officers and employees. those lumped together, are we okay with that role being in the executive, Rebecca as the clerk?
They set it and then is it approved through the budget process by city council or is is that a correct understanding?
For the compensation?
Yes.
That's fine, that's correct,
The
yes.
numbers.
It's 606, 6.06. Yes.
Later on, that's where we're talking about budgeting and, you know.
No, the salaries, it's by consensus of the mayor and the majority of the full board of the city council.
Okay. Everyone needs a second? Second, Rebecca for now, okay. Manages and controls city property. Okay, speak up, I'm just gonna kind of get against this. Power to issue executive orders organizing city government, setting administrative directives, decisions, personnel rules, etc. Any comments, thoughts on that? Okay with that. Advises council as to the financial conditions and needs of the city with information, data, and advice. You could argue that's budgetary in nature too. Okay. And the last one, the city council can consult with departments but cannot interfere with the conduct of departments, officers, or employees. Do we agree with that? So we're aligned on that as well. I'm gonna go over the questions. You can pull me back if I skip.
Can I ask one question
Of course.
on the budget? So the mayor presents the budget and the city council approves the budget. And it's all of the expense of running the city and the departments in the budget. Everything's in there. Like if that's how we use a statement. Okay, that's how I thought, that's what I'm saying.
So just want to make sure I understand before we move on. So the mayor will set the compensation, but the city council have the power to change that? Or is that just something set in stone with the mayor? I just didn't understand that.
The salary or salaries of officers of the city may be increased or decreased at any time with concurrence of the mayor and majority of the full votes of the entire city council, which concurrence shall be done by resolution or by ordinance of the council recommended and approved in writing by the mayor.
Interesting. Okay, thank you for help with that. Okay. I'm gonna move over to questions. I think we're good. We talked about the first one. Question number 2. Should the city council have the authority to override mayoral policy or executive orders with a vote of at least 5 members?
Let me take a stab at this one and be in the affirmative for this. And I'll point to a couple historical examples fairly recently. There have been policies in the city of Tampa that have targeted minorities, that have been policies of the police department, which is under the purview of the mayor. One of those happens to be the subject of a federal investigation by the Justice Department, I believe. And I can get into more details with that, but should a policy like that come to light, you know, maybe a whistleblower contacts a city council member, they're essentially powerless to do anything about policies that might impact the civil liberties of the citizens of Tampa. I mean, I guess they could go to, you know, report it to federal authorities, but they have to do an investigation, it takes time. I feel like there needs to be some balance, some check that the city council can impose in situations like that.
I realize more voting makes that less likely, but could the opposite situation occur where the council is approving decisions that are harmful in some way or negatively impact the city? Could that also occur? Again, I'm going back to our concept of A, future generations of leaders in both those cases, and B, fixing the problem that you cited. Bill.
Bobby, if you could add a little more clarity to the example you were giving, because my concern, if you had, could read that, should Tampa City Council have the authority to override mayoral policy? I don't know that you could be any more general than that. Mayoral policy, whatever that may be, or any of his or her executive orders, no limitation, with a vote of at least 5 members. So city council on literally, what that would mean, literally everything the mayor does, city council could come in on 5-7 votes, and no, you can't do that, no, you can't do that. I think government would come to a complete standstill. I mean, it would, respectfully, I think what the city has set up is a legislative branch and an executive branch, and what the state of Florida and what the United States of America. Each of those have their responsibilities, things like that. If there's a particular issue of real concern, and you were touching upon it, I was trying to follow that was so, problematic, horrific. I mean, maybe there's a way we can, round table, how do you fix that? The example you're trying to get at, but a generic 5 of 7 votes overrides all mayoral policy, you just essentially emasculated the executive branch. Would be my concern.
Is there a possibility of having a provision that would allow the city council to hold a hearing on whatever that issue might be?
That gets back into the investigative powers, I suppose, because, it could be something where they have, if we decided that it's strictly related to legislative matters, the case I was referencing earlier was biking while black. There was also renting while black. And these were policies of the police department that, had real effect on people's lives. Of course, the federal government got involved to, the degree that they needed to address those types of issues. And I hear what you're saying. It's a good point. There also needs to be consideration about the efficiency of government. You can't have two branches that, are stalling each other at every turn. But I feel like in other sections of the charter, there's this 5 to 7 method is the super majority, because it's hard to get to. And there's a reason they set the bar high. Maybe if there's interest, in if I support for the affirmative here, if it's a 7, if it's unanimous decision, maybe that would kind of grease the wheels of government a little bit and also get the balance in for equity in cases that it's needed.
Probably for now. Yes. But Ron, go ahead.
You're muted.
You're muted.
Sorry, I'd be a little bit concerned that we would be tipping the checks and balances. If there, to be crystal clear, if there's criminal activity alleged of the mayor or anybody in the administration or council, which has happened in the past. I mean, we've had individuals be indicted for criminal activity at the city, unfortunately. There is ample law enforcement mechanism to investigate and take care of that. And although the city doesn't have a court, we have a court system that the city is subject to. So if there is a justiciable issue that needs to go before the court system, then there is a court system to take that to. I think giving, toying with the balance of power by giving the commission, for instance, the ability to override legislative decisions, executive decisions that are made by the executive branch, or giving the executive branch the ability to somehow override what the legislative branch, what the council should do, runs the risk of not giving us as citizens the checks and balances that are very important to proper function of government.
Thank you, Ron.
I would be interested in seeing if you have specific examples that we could maybe look at to determine if there was an actual, if there was a legislative response, an appropriate legislative response in those situations. I don't know all of them, I don't know the full detail of what council may or may not have tried to do when that was brought to them, but I think by ordinance, council can do a lot of things, so I would be just interested to know if there is anything that they could have done for any of those situations, before we just jump right into saying, oh, give them more power, what could they have done in that situation to begin with?
Did you, Stephen, if we could have more details on what the response was to the instances or the examples that you mentioned?
I guess the specific, examples, and if anybody has them, I would, fine, because I think we should look at each of them and first understand what is the problem. Was there a problem with council not taking action when they could have taken action, or was it they were not allowed to take action? That's what they did. Because sometimes that isn't always clear when you watch the movies.
throw another hypothetical out there, so in Pinellas County, and this is kind of, I guess, an oblique example, there was an agreement signed between municipalities and the federal government for police to support ICE, as an example. In a case like that, that would be an executive decision, because the mayor, of course, is the representative to other governments. And I guess this gets back to Stephen's point, so I guess that's a great question, so like what can the council do at all, if anything, right now? Is it just completely 100% the mayor's purview to make decisions like that, and the council just finds out later through the news, or, you know? I just don't I guess that's a great question, I don't know the answer to that question.
Becca.
All those are very good points and examples. And I think that they played out with the system that we have, with them getting aired a lot and having a lot of public attention drawn to them, which led to changes. And without getting into specific examples, I think that that's the way that the charter was set up to work. And I think that it didn't work that way. I have a lot of concerns on a high level of having all administrative decisions be able to be changed, because there are a lot of things that I think maybe 5 members of city council disagree with how the mayor is handling things. But that happens a lot if you watch the meetings, and if you're not watching the meetings and you're involved on a day-to-day basis, you know from talking to them that they disagree with a lot of the things the mayor does. And they can air those things, and then we have elections, and then people choose whether or not they want to continue to support the mayor and the decisions they're making. And I'm comfortable with how that's been working with. And I want to be clear that I'm not saying that I've never disagreed with any mayoral decision, but I do feel that the process that we have in place has amply allowed for those things to be aired and changed.
The other challenge we would have, and we'd have to think it through, would be if you allowed a 5-7 vote to override a policy. There's no policy at that moment in time. Then who creates the next policy? Is that goes back to the mayor creates the policy, but then you're just, you'll have voids of could be a lack of policy. So it's just, I think it's something to think about and talk about. And I've shown shared my concerns with this. Another one is I was reading that is what happens if, in fact, well, that's void. Well, now what do we do?
I think.
I agree with Rebecca, but I also go back to the conversation at the very first meeting of the last meeting, which was what problem are we solving? So picking up on Stephen's thing, come to us with specific examples of like, this didn't get addressed, or they chose not to address it. I don't know, like, I don't even know the references of the 2 examples that you gave in terms of what happened. So I think we do have to ask ourselves what problem are we solving. I don't think there's a problem.
And Robbie, I think you started with a feeling that there might be, but some of these things are worthy of having someone maybe prevent them from proceeding.
Yes.
Thoughts on action?
So I guess just as background to add a little more context, I don't want to speak, you already know your stuff, but are you familiar with those 2 programs that I mentioned? If you are, I won't expound it. So the Viking While Black policy was essentially a pretextual policing policy where predominantly black men who were on their bikes that didn't have a bike light would be stopped by the police. And then that would be a pretext to search them. And the data came out, it was like 90% black males were being targeted by this policy. That's why the Justice Department got involved. But I mean, in a situation like that, it's like we have evidence that something bad was going on. I hear what everybody's saying about like the recourse being the investigation by the federal government. But if they're investigating it, like they're watching them do it, so it's still happening and people's liberties are being violated. But if the council found out about it and say, hey, like this needs to stop right now, like this clearly looks wrong, they don't have the power to do anything about it right now. And I think that's kind of what the basis of my argument is, but I think everybody's making great points and I hear what you're saying.
They could engage with the state level, they could raise it as an issue, make public, sorry.
Go ahead, Alan. There you go. It's what it is.
Just for context, let me liken this to what we see in Washington all the time. We're seeing sometimes congressional hearings by the opposition to the executive that get basically become sideshows, circuses, which don't really answer any question, but their point is to highlight or even embarrass the chief executive on any given issue. On the other hand, and the way Congress works is that their legal ability to hold those hearings is based upon a member of Congress saying, I am considering legislation to solve this problem, so therefore we have to have a hearing on what happened here to find out what the facts were to inform our decision. And historically, that has worked in some cases, for instance, the Watergate hearings or Iran-Contra. So the question before us is to balance the two priorities, finding the facts in terms of a situation or a controversy. On the other hand, we don't want to set up a system, I would imagine, where the hearing process can just be used to embarrass the chief executive.
Ashley?
Would it be a conversation to be able to pause the policy for a period of time, whether it's 15 or 30 days during that hearing? So let's say a decision is made, and then if there are 5 or all 7 council go like, wait, we're hearing from our immediate, our electors saying like, these are, we don't want this policy to happen. Is there a way we can pause that policy for a certain amount of time?
Well, I mean, I think that's part of what we're talking about, right? What is legislative's, authority with things like that, whether it's paused more or less.
And not paused indefinitely, I'm saying like whether it's paused for something, like if we figured out something, say, okay, let's pause, let's say, like you said, the mayor says ICE can come in here and everybody's like, no, we don't want that, can we pause that?
And the question is, what then? If they don't like it, you're back to basically saying they're shifting
Well,
the power structure between the two branches of government. I'm just saying that's what would happen.
yeah, well, during the hearing period, that like,
Yeah, I mean, that's for you guys to kind of think about, talk about, and advise on whether or not anything should change here, right? Based on specific instances that sounds like. Yeah.
Bobby, the example that you gave about the bikes, when I'm looking at this, it says, should Tampa City Council have authority to override a mayoral policy? And I just don't remember, I remember reading about it, but I can't imagine that targeting, certain people on the bikes was a mayoral policy. I never read anywhere that came from the mayor, or it was an executive order. So I understand your example. I don't think the example though is that there. This is a question of a override mayoral policy. What you're identified was a really bad actor or actors within a department. That's not a mayoral policy or an executive order. I mean, I can't imagine a world in which a mayor would say we're going to have a policy. We're going to target, so black boys riding or men riding bikes. So I hear your example. I don't think that's an example that applies to that bullet.
So that's a good point in that there's a difference between true policy, right, and what people do on the job, right? That's where we're really getting at. Does that make sense?
Well, I guess the question is, if the mayor is the executive with direct control over the police department, to what extent are police policies under the purview of the mayor? And I think that's kind of addressed in a memo from the city attorney from 2015, when they were discussing the CRB. That was like a huge issue back back in that time. I'd have to I have it in front of me right now, I don't wanna waste everybody's time, like, looking through it right here.
Do you want more time to dig into this a little bit, come back on it?
I feel like I'm counting the votes, and it's, not gonna go anywhere, so, straw poll, or do we have a lingering question, Stephen, that?
Well, I mean, I did ask for more information, so
So
if
you
you want
wanna
to direct that to us, I think we'd all like to see it, but I think to respond to your question, there's a difference between policy and then intent. So I agree that I don't think there was a policy that said go specifically target people of this race, but I think a program that looks to enforce certain laws in areas where those laws are more likely to be violated might have unintended consequences. And I think the only outlet at that moment that the community knew of was to go to city council. So kind of going back to, is there a problem? I think that there could be a problem. I just don't know how, if we, this group, can solve it, or if it's already been solved, but the tools are not being utilized. And that's why I go back to, I think that understanding the outcome of the investigation that occurred by the feds and what they concluded would be very helpful to know in terms of what, was it just an oops, they didn't mean to, but they did it and now they're not gonna do it again? Or, what was their conclusion out of that? And then we can maybe figure out if there's a role that we can play in making that not happen again.
So,
Rebecca had.
I have one question. Does a whistleblower call the city council or do they call the mayor's office? Does the city council have a whistleblower line?
No, I don't think it's specific, you can just email or call whoever.
so going back to what Stephen said, and a little bit of what you said, Bobby, because you're looking up, it sounds to me like this group's, the action is to learn more about two things, exactly what happened, A, and B, if the legislative branch did do something they could have done to prevent or stop that, right? So we've got to go do that, I think, we can, or should spend more time on this, I don't know, that we're gonna probably go in circles at this point. That being the case, I'm trying to think who can get all this information for us. Obviously, you guys are welcome to take some up, but I'll figure that out, we'll talk to Kelly and see if this is another thing maybe the city can provide more information about.
I think Bill identified a really interesting thread that we might keep in the back of our minds as we kind of go through some of these executive authority questions.
Yeah.
In this memo from the city attorney, it says it is expressly the mayor's authority as determined by the Second District Court of Appeal to have direct control and supervision over members of the Tampa Police Department. Third, it is within the authority of the police chief with the mayor's advice and consent to prescribe rules and regulations for the Tampa Police Department. So is there this like nested kind of like chain of executive authority, and at what point does it get cut off before it kind of ascends back to the mayor's purview?
I think it's all the mayor's purview,
Right,
right, because whoever reports to that person has to abide by, I mean, it's just chain of command, I would think. Right? None of it, the presumption that something, policy happens down there that the mayor doesn't bless, I don't think is possible. I mean, that just doesn't make sense to me on its face. Did you have an answer to that? I'd like to keep us moving.
Well, I mean, I think we'll come back to that, Bobby. I mean, I think we're here, that issue you raised was not I don't think there's gonna be, we get the information, I doubt there's any nexus between a policy or an executive order. And I think that once we see what the information is, we can learn some more, and we can flesh it out from there.
That's what we're putting through. Okay, I'm gonna move on to the next question. Since the mayor does not have a voting conflict, how should the mayor handle disclosed conflicts of interest?
Ken, is there anything in state law about that?
The mayor would be still subject to chapter 112 as far as ethics rules when it comes to local government. Most of the conflict kind of issues they're talking about are voting conflicts, where you have a personal interest in something that you're voting on. So I don't know background as to this question that's come through, but the mayor would be subject to state ethics rules as well as the city.
Isn't there an overall, like,
Sorry. What was that question? I'm sorry.
Ron.
Oh, Ron.
Thank you. the hand hovering behind Rob's head. I was
Yes.
just gonna, Ken, all city employees, including the mayor and council, are subject to the ethics code, right? Which would prohibit taking bribes and all kinds of things that would cause conflicts. Is that not correct?
That is correct. There's a bar on personal, using your government position for personal enrichment. There's a lot of different pieces in chapter 112 that apply to the mayor.
Yeah, I think that the question might be faulty in that it presumes that there could be some conflict that's not disclosed or happens, but I think what the ethics code, the conflict of interest in voting is a little bit different than having a conflict in an ethical way in your discharge of city duties. But as far as I am concerned, the ethics code really prohibits all city employees and us as members of this commission from doing a variety of things. And so that's it's already addressed. The reason that there's no voting ethics code, sorry for being in the dark here, is because there's no voting that happens by those other individuals, but it doesn't mean that there's not a conflict of interest set of standards that applies to all of those individuals who are undertaking activities on behalf of the city.
Did someone else have, sorry.
Just says, should the mayor handle, and then it goes on to say, and disclose conflicts of interest. Again, assuming there is a conflict of interest. I mean, I can't imagine we don't all agree, right? It makes sense. The ethics rules, they govern everybody, you know, the mayor, everyone. I get that. That's a set of rules. Who would the mayor disclose that to if he or she had a conflict? There was a big contract being negotiated, whatever the case may be. To whom is a conflict disclosed?
Well, I think the challenge you got there is the disclosure of conflicts deals with voting. That's how our state process is set up. And the contract would get approved by city council,
not the mayor.
Oh, correct. So if there was a conflict there among a council member, if this is a subject that is interesting to the group, I would recommend getting more detail as to the context.
It's not that interesting to me. I
just want to, because I was reading, right, in a vacuum, that's the challenge, is you've got state rules that do apply.
Yeah, and I think one of the challenges here is there's something behind here we don't know, right? Like when we talk about the issues we're trying to solve, so we're just getting the question, so that's a challenge.
I don't know that I have seen every discussion about this that's occurred at council, but there's a couple of discussions that I have seen that related to certain council members being advised by the legal department to disclose a conflict of interest or a potential conflict of interest, and then either not vote or abstain, or whatever the case may be. And that council member brought forward the fact that all ordinances do need to be signed by the mayor. It's not a vote, but the mayor does have a essentially being able to veto an ordinance. So the question was raised, isn't that the same as a vote? And frankly, isn't that more powerful than a vote? Because you can force it to an override, you can force it to draft council override. So I don't necessarily have an opinion about it, I'm just saying this is what I retained in my memory from the discussion about where this may have come from.
That's not what where does that put us?
Rebecca's hands up.
I think that it's covered by the ethics code, and I think goes beyond just voting. But again, that's my read of it, so if anyone feels they need additional information on it, then I would ask that we get some additional information, because my read of it is that you can't influence, you can't do things with family members, and it goes beyond just voting to receive a benefit. So I think it's in there, and I think, like Stephen said, the question may come up when it's a real clear time, you have to disclose something, when you have to vote on it. And maybe the question is, when do you disclose it? If you don't have to vote on it, but you are obligated not to end up in a situation where you're enriching yourself.
So the question would be,
I think it's already in there, but maybe,
let me ask us, just get a sense for the group. It sounds like most of us feel like the ethics code covers this, but there are also some who feel like at a minimum, it gets to the mayor and there's a conflict, there should be a reporting process of some kind or a notification to the group to kind of subject him or herself to the same rules that voting members of the council would have. Where are we on this as a group as to doing something about this or figuring we're covered by what we have with ethics rules?
Can I add an additional question for clarification? Maybe that's something that can come back, but like hypothetical example, say the city has some land that it wants to dispose of and develop, and somebody within the city, you know, working for the city, within the mayor's office, the mayor themselves has like a family tie to a development group that wants to bid on a certain piece of property. How, I mean, if they can't ethically give that person, that bidder, a development group a contract, if your family member works for that, how does the mayor say, I can't give you a contract, because then I might be like, enriching myself? I guess I'm just asking in a different way, like what's the process? Like how do they fill out a form? Do they inform the bidder that they can't accept the contract because of the conflict? Like how do you square that?
Typically, the request for proposals, the process that someone goes through requires disclosure of connections and things like that. The city can design it that way. The key is that the contract itself is approved by the vote of the council. So that's the check on the executive.
So it has to be built into the.
When you're doing a contract,
Procurements go through city council.
right, when you're doing a contract, you're asking for these kind of connections that the city can design its own procurement task, consistent with the ethics code as far as the kind of level of detail. If someone's trying to promote their own family, that's when you're getting into potentially criminal actions and ethical complaints that we find in the state. So,
Including the evaluation, that is part of it too, right? You can't. Like when you have evaluation panels for procurements, there are stricter rules about the individuals doing the voting on those proposals.
the city hasn't adopted a process as far as the statute to go through.
We have two more quick hands here. I want to see if we can get to some decision on this one way or the other, just to keep us moving.
Kevin, would you confirm, I think I'm correct, all contracts ultimately have to be approved by city council?
Correct.
Okay.
I think, just because I think your hands over here, just Rebecca, were your hands up before Ashley or Ellen's?
I can say mine on the
Yes, okay.
I think the contractual restrictions, as I read them, are covered in both the state law and the city of Tampa ethics code. And in fact, the city ethics code is a legislative enactment and was adopted by city council, not this one. But it was most recently updated in 2024.
It's pretty clear around others.
Okay. Did you have a comment, Stan?
I have a question.
So, go ahead, I couldn't tell who was up first.
If somebody has a comment on that, this is related, but it's not just.
Let's go to input versus question. Go ahead, Alan.
I guess the question is, are the RFPs for a contract uniformly have required disclosures that would get to this issue? Or is it just a contract by contract?
That I don't know, certainly investigate.
The contract, I mean, I do government consulting, and the contracts that I've submitted for have a required form that I believe is required by statute. But it's voluntary, you disclose it, so they don't say, give me your full, it's assumed that if you submit it, you document your conflicts. If you haven't submitted, you don't have the conflicts.
It's with what you guys are asking, I feel like you're asking for the person that's applying, whether or not they are related to or whatever to any city officials. But this question is asking, how does the mayor disclose? So if that contractor does not disclose and they move forward and then it comes to, oh, that's actually your brother-in-law, I don't think anybody that close would do it, but if it comes to pass it, then they realize there's a connection there and the mayor does not disclose it, it's in the ethics, code of ethics, what's supposed to happen from there. is what I'm getting, okay.
That's my reading of it.
Yeah.
I don't-
I guess we don't know if this has happened, right? We don't have an example, historical example of this exact issue. I'm just asking in case someone knows or one.
That's hot. You have, Steven? Steven has.
Is it that we need, is it that we, I didn't have a question, just a second. Is it that we're asking for more information about what, what the process is? I just want to get to an action on this. I'm not sure I'm there yet. Go ahead with your question, then I'll see if we can get the group to summarize this.
Well, my question, which does not have to be answered now, is whose responsibility is it to enforce the ethics code?
But any individual would file an ethics complaint. That's the state process when it comes down.
You said it's the process?
We got you, Ron.
Where are we on landing this then?
Ron has a comment.
Ron, go ahead.
I just want I think Kent answered the question too, but if someone, the question I think that Stephen asked, which is a good question, was who enforces a violation of the ethics code? Then I think the answer is if it's a criminal violation of the code, then it's law enforcement in the courts, and if it's a civil, the state ethics commission has jurisdiction over any ethical violation of any elected or person who's subject to Chapter 112. Ken, that's generally correct?
That's correct.
I guess the question then to the group is, do we want more explicit language whereby we require this to be done in a certain way? Is that the group's feeling, or do we feel like we're okay? It's important, but no change to the charter. Can someone give me a sense for where we are on this?
I think a lot of the support with the ethics outline, there's a process that exists.
Right.
Maybe we need to familiarize ourselves with that process, but
So that would require the mayor to know every project that's coming through and every contract that's coming through to even check to see if there's a conflict of interest.
Well, I'm guessing the mayor does by virtue of either vetoing or approving what the council decides. So that she would see, or he would see it anyway. Questions if it comes across the desk and there's a conflict, but to your point, Kathleen, there seems to be a process for this. I don't know, we don't know really precisely what it is or where it's talking.
I haven't seen a charter amendment yet.
I haven't
I
either.
we talk about an issue and we've got the ethics.
Is that the consensus?
Yeah.
No changes, okay.
And these are questions from the council, Ms. Moore.
Yes, we have two more. Does the group want to do a 5-minute break or keep pressing? Pressing on, press on, okay.
You need a break? You need a break?
Well, I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. Sure. Well, okay. I don't need a break, thanks for asking. Should a process be created, sorry, I want to try to do this, should a process be created to arbitrate or settle disputes between the mayor and city council since there's no judicial of the city? So again, none of us are asking this, we're getting this question. I'm gonna probably defer to you, Ken, but is it by definition the charter designed to indicate how decisions are made, who makes those decisions? I guess I would ask, what is a dispute that doesn't have a path to resolve? Does anyone know that answer? That's what I don't understand. And I'm not as savvy as you are about government, but I think we need an example or two here to understand the premise of the question. I don't know that we have it, do we? I mean, or does someone think of an example that is a good reason?
Examples of disputes?
Well, yeah, where is there a dispute that doesn't have an associated process In other words, we have voting rules, we have charter provisions that get enacted.
The ability to override.
Right, exactly, so,
Success.
right, so even, to me, it seems like, and again, I'm probably oversimplifying, but the very reason we're here is to make sure the charter balances those levels of authority, and spans of control, et cetera, and makes it clear how decisions are made. But one question is, and if the answer is no, I'm just gonna move on. Our job isn't to, it's a quarterback these things, but I think at least we need to talk about them since the council threw them away. Can anyone think of any disputes that don't have a process baked in already by virtue of the charter and the rules therein? On a loaded question, maybe we do, no? Okay, I'm gonna keep us moving, okay? Should new positions, this might relate to this 6.0 section. Should new positions or salary changes above a certain percent after budget approval require a majority vote approval by city council? So I guess salary changes go through budget approval, so why would we do it after budget approval is my question. Does anyone have any insights?
Maybe if it's done like mid-year or somewhere before the next budget's presented, I would assume, Scott. You present a budget, they approve it, you're within the budget, and then you can do out of sync promotions, it sounds like someone's getting at that. Or hires.
And can that be done?
It has to be in the next year's budget that they have to approve.
Right.
So it'd be like 6 to 8 months or something like that.
Right.
Something along that.
I mean, it seems to me the budget process is the mechanism by which any salary changes are addressed. This city doesn't seem like there's an issue. Stephen? Thoughts?
I mean, I'm happy to go first.
You go.
So, and Ron does have his hand.
You're shaking your head.
My purpose up first, so.
Stephen's gonna go and then we'll get to Ron.
When the answer is yes, however, you can increase salaries in between the budget approvals. If there is money available to do so in salary. There is often money sitting that should have gone to the salary of somebody who retired, resigned, or was terminated, that can then be used to close out that year and give somebody a raise, and then in the new budget, that person is gonna be at the higher rate that they were at. So it's almost like council is put in a position to decide to let somebody keep the raise they already got or bump them back down, which is an awkward decision to make. My understanding though is that the HR policy is that there's a 4% increase even if you get a promotion, there's a maximum 4% increase, which depending upon how you look at that, depending on what kind of promotion it is, I think a lot of us would probably agree that 4% may not even be sufficient, depending upon what the role is in certain situations. And I've seen individuals that have been promoted into higher levels, and for transparency, I did receive a promotion at the city and did not get a pay raise more than 4%. I'm not saying I deserved it, but I think that there are probably circumstances where folks do, and the administration has the ability to override that. And I think they should be able to override the 4% whenever they think it's necessary.
They mean,
The administration.
so the 4% is this
It's an internal,
statute?
it's internal, I guess it's an executive order. However, the HR manual is approved, I assume it's by executive order. And I think Ron was next.
Ron, go ahead. Thank you for the
Sure. Thanks and good comment, Stephen. I think that the question presumes something that also I'm not sure that the premise is correct. A budget, in my understanding, is not a prescription of every single thing that needs to happen operationally or be spent in the course of the year. It's kind of a snapshot in time, and it sets financial limits around things. So changing a salary within, so that it stays within budget, would seem to me to be consistent with the budget. But the implication in the question is that it's not. And I think if we start to require, reapproval of operational things that are within the budget, it could get really messy down the road. I mean, no company really works that way. If a departmental budget is set and you have a shift and somebody leaves and you've got to hire a new person and pay them a little bit differently, you don't go back to the board of directors to pass a new budget or to approve that position as long as it's within the scope of what was approved the first time. And if it's not within the scope of the budget, then it can't be done and would have to go back already.
It seems to me that I'm hearing the answer to this to be, no, that there's a process today that works, that gives some autonomy to departments, to department leaders. But in fact, within the budget balance and to have any new budgets go through council anyway, then we're getting an agreement to that, any disagreements to that.
Okay, great. Are there any examples where it's like skyrocketed and there's been like an awkward like issue with the budget?
I wish that would happen to me.
Is that something we can request from staff?
But we can request
Pay raises above the 4% in the last 5 years.
to see it.
I mean, that's what the implication is.
I guess the question is, if the answer is yes, we change our mind.
Are you looking for names and that's?
I'm just curious the number of times this is already like a role. Yes, I could do. If it's happening all the time, is it, you know, it's just, is there really a problem?
No, I would want to see the role too.
It's all public record, so I don't.
Right, it is, technically, but I would like to see, like he says, over the past 5 years, the percentage increase in the roles. Like, are there specific roles that this happens to, or is it some roles that it's 4%, some may do something different?
Okay. We can ask. All right, took the action, we'll find out what's going on behind this, and then you guys can decide if it still causes you
I
concern.
mean, I don't know. I think you have to think about it in the construct of how organizations run. And so if you have somebody that's running an organization that's running their people, unless it's way out of line, I mean, you're getting a lot of people in a lot of other people's organizational management, and I think that's very hard to functionally move forward on policy and everything else, and so, I'm fine with looking at the numbers, if there's 100 of these that happen, but I know from my time in government, you had allocable dollars for salary, and if FTEs were left open, you could use those dollars for, salary affected people. But in the course of the year, you always have to go back to the legislature and get approval on budget, and that's just the way it is, it's like. So they wouldn't be permanent promotions unless you reallocated that permanently, so.
The other question behind this that would be, I think, important is, right, if some are getting more, but they're rock stars, right, there's value to talent too, so it's also a performance conversation.
Yeah, I'm not saying
Right, you just want to see
there
what
should
it
be a
is.
limitation, just to be clear, but I think if the question was asked, we're being asked to respond and say whether or not there's a problem, we ought to fact find a little bit.
Yeah.
And just to
I
kind
think
of
that was the answer to that too, because you're not gonna have 50% of your workforce all be the best. It should be,
and just, I guess to be more specific, these are salary increases that do not fall under the blanket salary increases for either merit or cost of living that every other employee is eligible, is subject to. I mean, they're
right beyond the COLA.
We're percentage increases that were approved across the board, we're not talking about that, we're talking about in excess of.
Like
Yeah,
exceptions.
but exceptions to merit too, because there is a merit scale, this is exception, this is beyond.
I think we dreamed that one, so thank you. I have a lot of notes that cover everything we talked about. That you'll see when we get this typed up, that was pretty thorough, so I think we're good. I think we can move on to I think it's absence and succession, correct?
Yeah.
Thank you. Otherwise, that we move on. Yes. Okay, so this is the second Part 4.02. Everything. I'm gonna summarize this and then go back and see what it feels like. During temporary disability disqualification and inability to serve, the chair of city council serves as mayor and chair pro tem presides over city council meetings. I'm just gonna ask this one at a time. Does anyone have any heartburn with this? The answer is no. Second, if it shall be necessary for the chair to discharge the duties of the mayor for more than 10 successive days, the acting mayor shall receive the mayor's salary during such time as that acting mayor is acting. So in this case, the chair of city council after 10 days will receive the mayor's salary. Does anyone have any nothing on that? If the office of the mayor becomes permanently vacated, by various legal reasons, to use the word we used earlier, the chair shall discharge the duties of the mayor until the successor for the unexpired term shall take office. So this is really the case where the council chair is now acting as mayor and does it until the end of the term. Any heartburn on that? Probably.
Just a question, and it's my fault for not looking into it, but so would that be the same procedure as the special elections procedure listed in the miscellaneous article of the charter? Or what, how does the successor come in for the mayor? Is it?
I don't know that far into the charter. I think this
There's a
is
special
saying,
election process that if it's not within a certain period of time, if there's an election on schedule, or whatever, I don't know how all that, but it's. Yeah, it's an election law.
I think that what that speaks to is the idea that the person is filling that role until it's otherwise filled.
Yeah.
So I was curious about otherwise filled. Section, Article 10 or Section 10 is miscellaneous and there's the special election provisions there. I just didn't look, look at that.
this is saying that there's no special election, basically the now acting mayor just completes the term and then the election follows the normal cycle, correct? Please, what this means. Okay, well,
part of the term.
Oh, okay.
actually, we talk about special election next, as it turns out.
Right, because if we were talking about the election, there would be a cutoff somewhere between when somebody can serve as an acting mayor, or if it's a longer period of time, have that special election. Remember,
Okay. So,
But you have a late when Henderson, there was a certain amount of time that still left, so we had to do a special election, but.
right, so I guess I'm just trying to understand what that time period is as it relates to this. Is it might be section 10,
Didn't read
I
it.
would have like that.
but is that in 4.02?
The process, the procedure for special.
Okay. So I guess this question is a broader one, and then we'll get to that one, but does anyone have any objections with either of these as stated?
My only question is, does the city council chair stay in both roles? Or does the vice chair then become the chair of the council?
Vice chair. Okay,
So special elections is answered on 10.01 subpart 4. It talks about when you have, depends on how many months are left in the term, stuff like that.
can you get that number again, Bill?
Yes, 10.01 subpart 4.
Any city office.
Okay, just so we can go to that. Okay, so that one was. Oh, Ron, right.
Sorry, I just had a question on the second bullet point. And you may not know this, but the way the summary reads here is that the person, it says, receives the mayor's salary. The mayor doesn't lose their salary if they're disabled for 11 days or something like that, right? There's some mechanism where if the mayor's disabled, they continue to get paid. This would be like a second payment made to the chair.
Typically, the city would have coverage for disability that would trigger at a certain point. as far as payment, but this would not remove the salary from the mayor. It simply reflects that the chair is doing the job of the mayor.
And then the
Thank-
salary will be paid for it at a certain point.
Just because there is a radical difference in salary.
Thank you, Ken. That's helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to departments. Departments.
You got it.
Double checking, want to make sure to get this right, okay. Another line. Okay, we're now in Article 5. We have a lot of homework on the first part of the line before we get back to you on. We have questions, so this will take a little while. Okay, let's jump in with departments. The mayor, by executive order approved by city council by a 2/3 vote, they established, create, combine, or abolish departments or boards. I have a comment there, I don't know if I left anything off by accident. I'll do this quick, we'll go back. Power shall not extend to the legal department, Department of Revenue Finance, Internal Audit, Police Department, Fire, Civil Service, Board of Trustees of the City Employees Retirement Fund, the firefighters and police officers pension fund. Let's stop there maybe, because I think these two are essentially one and the same with more granularity in the second one. Does the group have issue with either of these two first bullets as stated? You understood?
Just one clarification, you're saying the city council does not get involved in the legal department, Department of Revenue Finance, or they do get involved? I don't know when you separate, when you say this power.
I think what it means is that those things are established by charter, and the mayor, even if the mayor and city council vote to do it, it doesn't, they'd have to change the charter. to do it.
Right,
Okay, I just wanted to.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Bear with me just a second, I'm just writing stuff down. Does anyone cite any issues? Sorry.
City, so the question, but, is there is there a state statute definition for what a department is?
I'm not aware of one as far as what you would consider to be a department, beyond being a subdivision of the city government.
With a primary function.
Right, it's usually given a specific task and how it functions from there, but I think when it speaks to it here, it's talking to different divisions.
But essentially there is no limit
In limit to
the definition of what a department is, as long as there's a mission that's identified.
correct, I
And
think
it
it's
relates to the executive, execution of the municipal.
it comes to organize particular functions of government.
There are good ways to do that.
Yeah, but I guess I asked because the term department is very important, there are a lot of assumptions tied to what is a department, is a department, and so, like, we're gonna keep saying that throughout the rest. Like, for instance, the director level staff, I think the intent, not the intent, but that word means something very specific, and it's department heads. So heads of departments that have been defined through the process of the first two bullets, so those are specific individuals that may not be every person with the title of director, it's the person that's tied to a department that's been established in that process.
Correct. And the way this charter is set up, that's the highest level of division. Would be the best way to put it.
Have there been a lot of new departments created in the last 10 years?
Well, I mean, yes, there's been significant reorganization. To address the needs, the changing needs. But there has been confusion about what constitutes a department head, so that's why I asked what constitutes a department.
Right, it could be the question of the budgetary allocation, the number of people. You know,
Which is
two-person
also an important
department.
distinction, it's tied
Right.
to how we budget by department, so it matters. Like the word is nothing matters.
I'm not seeing,
Just wanted to make sure I understood your question clearly, so were you asking if director level staff in that question only applies to these listed in the charter?
I don't know if it's clear from the question.
Okay, just want to make sure I follow you.
talking about this. Yeah, I was gonna move this here, so maybe I'll do that now. So I'm not hearing any big objections to these, but moving over, this is related, this is more the leader of the department, not the department itself, but should council be able to remove a director with a vote of at least 5, with a vote of at least 5 members? What are our thoughts about that? Rebecca?
I feel that the way the government is set up, the mayor is the administrator and the directors are the people who work directly with him or her. It's their team. And I feel that there are certain ones in the charter that have appointments confirmation by city council. But I think that once they're appointed, they are working directly with the mayor. And I know the city council can have conflict with them, but it is the mayor's team. That's the way it's set up. And so I feel that they do have the ability to confirm, I believe, certain ones from the charter. But I don't think that they should have the ability to remove them because they're unhappy with the director. I feel that they need to fight that out publicly, let them know what the complaints are, and I feel they do that in a very public forum on a very regular basis. But to remove them, it's the mayor's team and she's responsible for it, and if people feel that her team has failed or his team, there's the option not to vote them back in.
And sometimes, and I don't want to get into your business, but this is closer to what I do, but just to throw it out there for consideration, right? This notion ideally should be tied to some shared definition of what performance is or isn't. Really, I mean, right, because sometimes we get into the notion that someone's not doing it, is there a job question, what is that, what is success for that function?
Right.
That's agnostic to the lead, it's just, what is that function there to do? How do you know they're doing it well? Those are good questions. I don't know that we need to tackle it here because it's not specifically raised. This is getting, of course, to something I probably related to that, but it is getting to the leader of a team working out through the mayor. Right. In the perfect world, those things are defined because they are agnostic, right? These are the measures, these are the things that constitute, and that actually gets translated to job descriptions, right? And performance evaluations, I get it. I'm here to no to this though, based on just the room's body language. Okay. All right. So let me just write that down. Question 1. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. And I think somebody deleted the video. The third bullet, changes to the accepted departments and boards not established by a special act of the legislature shall be subject to an order referendum initiated by ordinance of the city council. So I guess the accepted departments are these, right? One of the charter. All right. And any changes to those, but in a way, that's what we're talking about here, right? This would all go to the voters anyway by virtue of a charter change. Is that not just saying that's what we would do?
Yeah, you can't eliminate
Right.
the legal department without going to the charter.
Right, and the charter goes to the voters. And the amendments go to the voters after the council decides that they go to the voters. So I think we're okay with that. That's the process, we're good with that, okay? And then finally, section 501F, public works, sanitation, purchasing. Shall be, this looks as more an amendment to the prior version of the charter, right? Shall be removed, is no longer necessary to be in the city charter, like these still are. It will be included as amended from time to time by an ordinance of the city council as provided for herein, to be included in the city of Tampa code. Whew. Okay. So basically what it's saying is those are just normal departments and bound by the other rules. Did I get that right? I know we have a lot of attorneys helping with that, yes. Okay, good. And I don't see any objections to that here. Okay, so I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna go to the questions here. So far, these look good and no. Next one, Florida bar rules provide guidance. And honestly, this might belong up above, but I wrote it here for some reason. On how attorney should handle two clients who are in conflict, should the city attorney follow some or all of those rules? Should the mayor have an attorney that represents the mayor's interests, just as city council has an attorney? Should interim appointments leave this up? These attorney questions, I think, relate to the attorney questions we covered.
No, that question has not been covered.
Okay,
So should we go in order?
yes, please.
All right, one, every attorney is subject to the ethics rules. So there's no exception for the city attorney. So I've answered the question. Two, this question indicates, okay, Florida rules provide guidance on how attorneys should handle two clients who are in conflict. Of course it does. It walks you through exactly how you deal with that issue. No question about that. So I don't know what more there is.
So really what we're saying is this is clear in yes, any attorney should follow it.
They have to.
Okay.
Yeah, no question about it.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so then thank you for the assist. Again, should the mayor have an attorney that represents the mayor's interest, just as city council has an attorney, so.
And I hate to keep jumping in on this one, but I can spend a lot of time looking at this issue, and Ken, in fact, interestingly enough, one of your partners, a good friend of mine, when young, analyzed all of this 11 years ago, and some of these same questions. Should the mayor have an attorney that represents the mayor's interest, just as the city council has an attorney? Okay. So you've got to start with the question, who does the city attorney represent? The city attorney does not represent the mayor. The city attorney does not represent city council, period, end of story. The city council represents the city. The city attorney represents the city of Tampa. That's the entity, that's the client. Happens all the time in corporations. You represent a corporation, I don't represent the CEO, I don't represent the board. To the extent that they have conflicts and want to go fight, mom and dad want to fight, they can go hire their separate boards. So while the city council has their attorney, right? Yeah, but I don't see any need for the mayor to go out and hire a separate. Now you've got the mayor, the city council, the city attorney. I mean, to me, I would just add an expense line in the budget. I think that's a solution chasing a problem.
Are we in agreement to answer this as a group? Ron? Thank you.
Yeah, I was just gonna get Bill's thoughts on who does the city council attorney represent? Does the city council have existence independent from the city from a legal perspective what are your thoughts on that?
Well, the city council's attorney is there to counsel and advise city council. So what do you mean by the question? Well, I'm not sure I'm following your question. I mean, it's enacted in the city charter. So they're there to advise and counsel city council.
During the meetings?
During the meetings, at all times, I mean, they can talk at all times, yeah.
I get their advice and counsel, but my question is, from an ethics perspective, who's their client?
Who's the city council's client? City council attorney's client. I'd have to look more at that one. I haven't really, the focus wasn't on.
And Bill, I'm not meaning to put you on the spot. I probably shouldn't have asked you that question, but you were kind of on a roll walking through these, and we're talking about your experience and the mayor not needing separate counsel because I think what you said is, the city attorney represents the city. And I was just kind of following that logical train of thought.
Do you want to dig into that?
Yeah.
So, Bill, go ahead,
Question for you, Bill, because I'm not a lawyer. And I don't know much about the law, this might just be a stupid question, but how do you define the client? For example, if the city council attorney can't file suit, bring or defend any action in court. How does that mesh? That's just my ignorance. I'm assuming.
That's not ignorance, the city, that's not ignorance at all, Bobby. The city attorney is the final legal spokesperson for the city of Tampa. So the city council, this is the way the charter was, I remember reading it, the way the charter was, when they brought in the city council to have their own attorney, was with those guardrails that you can't go out and speak for the city. That ultimately lands in the hands of the city attorney.
Can I just follow up?
Yeah.
So then just so I can understand how this works, so if the city council attorney can't represent the council in court and is just there as an advisor, is this, do you get what I'm asking, is the city council then the city council attorney's client or not, or is he just like an advisor on the side? I just don't understand.
I'll have to.
That's what I'm gonna find out.
On the city council one, I spent more of my time focused on the question of city attorney, not the city council's role. I mean, so I gotta flush that one out.
And Bobby, your question is a good one because a lawyer presumably can only represent a person or a legal entity. It can't represent something that doesn't exist. And the question is, the city council, from a bar ethics perspective, is it a person or entity that could have its own lawyer, or it's not that you can't advise it as a body. I mean, county commission, for instance, has a lawyer that sits there and advises county commission for sure, and so does city council. But that individual at the county level represents the county. The county is their client, which is a governmental entity. That's what I was struggling with in our prior discussion, and here is, does the city council exist separate from the city, or is the lawyer's obligations really to the city of Tampa, not this body that is a legislative body for the city? I don't know the answer to the question, which is why last time we were we were talking about maybe having someone come in and talk to us about it.
Yeah, at least what they would do, but yeah.
Yeah, but remember, city council's attorney cannot speak for the city, can't bring a lawsuit, can't do any of those things. So I suspect when I look at this, we're gonna find it's an advisory role, is what they are, period, end of story.
So I just, since you're offered to do the research, I guess the question though is what happens when the city council attorney does offer advice that the city attorney disagrees with?
I can answer that question now.
Okay.
City attorney's gonna be the deciding factor. They speak for the city. And if it's a city related question, which you would have to be emanating from city council, the city attorney's gonna the final, decision maker.
So I guess then going back to what problem are we trying to solve? How many times has the city council attorney disagreed with the city attorney? And how many times has the city attorney's position changed?
I mean, those are some good questions that we could maybe unpack if we get some visitors to talk about that a little bit.
And, I have and he hit it at the end, because the way I'm reading this question, should the mayor have an attorney that represents the mayor's interest just as city council as an attorney? Are they saying, not saying they're accusing the city attorney of doing it, but I guess it's coming from a space of whenever there was a dispute, it was in the mayor's interest. Is that what the question is?
Well, it seems to me they're looking for a third attorney in this situation. The mayor has one, the city has one, the council has one. I think we said no.
I think they're trying to clear up, this is what we're experiencing, should this be happening? That's the way I'm reading the question. The city attorney, and I've never been involved in the city, and y'all know what's happened in the past. But the way I'm reading it is they're saying, this is what I'm experiencing. The city attorney is acting in the mayor's interest a majority of the time, or however many times or whatever, and they're wondering, should that be happening? And if we decide, no, that shouldn't be happening, then is there some type of record that's been kept as to how many times the city attorney has acted in the mayor's interest?
Possibly, right? We're guessing a little bit because we didn't write it down. Go ahead.
Well,
Sorry.
No, it's not a sorry, it's the city attorney has to ultimately land the plane and say, okay, my allegiance is to the city. City council, you think A, mayor, you think B. And ultimately, that city attorney, acting with the best of intentions and a really, really bright lawyer, and there's been many in that seat, may say 70% of the time that based on all the facts, evidence and everything, I think the mayor's right on this. That doesn't mean that the city attorney's doing a darn thing inappropriate. That means the city attorney is just simply making the ultimate decision. So now if you said, all right, let's give the mayor an attorney and city council attorney, now what do? Really, you're just creating another job for nothing, because then they're gonna both come to the same city attorney and argue, hey, I think this, I think that, and the city attorney ultimately is gonna make the decision which they deem to be in the best interest of the city. Not the mayor, not the city council, the city.
You know, I don't think there needs to be an additional role, but I just think that,
No, that's out of the group though. But I think we're saying no to this with some homework to find out more. Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm just curious.
So, good?
Yeah, I think we're covering the same, so.
So, oh, sorry, hold on. So the answer is. Ron, did you have something to say before we go on? I think we.
Yeah,
Anything we haven't covered on this?
I just want to make clear, when you say, when someone says, represent the mayor, represent council, using the analogy of a board, if the CEO of a company is acting in their capacity as CEO, the lawyer's client is the company. The CEO of the company could have an individual lawyer if they are negotiating their own employment contract with the company. But in that case, the lawyer's client is the individual, and it's the interests of the individual. Here, we're not saying the city attorney, in no stretch of the ethical rules, does the city attorney represent the individual who happens to hold the position of mayor. They represent the client, the city. And I believe the same is true for the city council attorney. They don't represent any individual on council or the council outside of its role as being the legislative body of the city. So their client is the city of Tampa as well. So I think the way we're having the question framed for us is, does the mayor need a council? It's a misleading from how lawyering works and how the bar and ethical rules work. There is no independent decision-making of the mayor that's outside the scope of her authority as the chief executive of the city. And therefore, whether you had a mayor or not, their client is still the city of Tampa. It could not be the mayor, I don't believe, and it could not be city council members outside the scope of their official duties as part of the city and still have the client be the city.
Thank you, Ron. Go ahead, we'll go build it now.
2.04 subpart 1, it talks about the city council's attorney. It speaks to, sir, Bob, you would ask this question, specifically says he or she is hired to serve in an advisory capacity to the city council. It's an advisory role.
That's helpful. Alan?
Then the question becomes is, what is the impetus for the question being asked in the first place?
Exactly.
that's my question, isn't it?
Because I would agree, I don't see there's any problems with the city council being able to solicit legal advice independently.
Okay.
But just as a follow-up to that, what is the value, I mean, there's a question, what is the value in that? At any moment, any piece of advice can be essentially invalidated by the city attorney stepping in to say, no, that's incorrect. This is actually the correct information.
Remember, it's just advice of the ultimate decision. It's the city council's decision, right? I mean, the city attorney can come in and say, well, I disagree with Marty's advice, but that decision is to have a vote. Remember, a lawyer's just advising. The ultimate decision is the client's decision. Or in this case would be, it's not the client's the city, but it would be city council, so.
Which I think is why they said, don't touch it. I think that gets to the heart of, we want this role, we find value in it, so please don't touch it.
Oh, yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
But they still make the decision.
one more comment, I think we trained this to Jerry, probably. Okay, so I think our answer to this is no.
No.
We need a little bit, I think Bill's gonna do some homework for us, just to learn a little bit more about this, but you've already found some information, say it's advisory.
It's advisory.
So you probably found the
it.
answer.
I'll look out for
So I wanna move to this one here. Should, and that's the final question for this particular one, for 5.01. Should interim appointments, including the appropriate length of time a department head should serve in interim capacity, be reviewed? Now, it doesn't say by whom, so I don't know that this helps us a lot, but it's really looking at, I think it's presuming that the council gets involved with interim appointments. I would read between the lines there, but there's another one. Excellent. No, but
Now, there's a section number, I'm sorry for jumping in, it's here, I read it today, about 90 days, it rolls into another 90 days.
6.03 is a different article, so I was gonna ask if
we can move that there.
maybe.
Yeah, that's
put it
fine.
there.
Let's move it there. I might have missed out on it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll move this. What's the section again?
6.03.
We can do this, but I can't. Okay, should a,
Ron's hands up about this.
I'm sorry,
Ron,
Ron, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. If I'm remembering correctly, this issue was considered by the prior Charter Review Commission, and the prior Charter Review Commission chose to not change it. And I'll give you guys a brief history on that. And then in 2023, the City Council themselves self-approved, I think, 4 or 5 amendments, and they passed this as an amendment in 2023 outside of the Charter Review Commission process, and it related to the residency requirement principally because what had happened in practice is the charter prohibited certain individuals from holding positions if they lived outside the city limits. And there was a mechanism that was being deployed to circumvent that restriction by calling the person interim and interpreting the charter to not prohibit interim appointments of individuals outside the city. And the interims happened for many, many years. And so the last time the commission that I was on considered it, we didn't change it. We chose not to change it. And then in 2023, the current provision was put in by council for some reason. I'm not sure because I wasn't part of that process. But I think part of it is if we resolve the residency requirement, this doesn't apply to elected officials, just employee people. It might tie into this interim period of time issue as well. And we maybe look at those two things together.
Just looking for hands. Okay. Thanks, Ron. So are these interim, is there a different section of the charter?
It's 6.03.
Can we look into there as well? Okay. Let's do it at 6.03. I don't guess I'm okay to that, but that's okay, we can do that. And then there's a question. Should a chief administrative officer position be established? So I guess that'd be on its face, right? If the mayor wanted to, he could. Right? So I'm not sure what problem this is. This is one of those questions where I lie. Do you know more about this?
Yeah, I'll address that. That was one of the questions that got in, that I raised with my appointer. So just as a little background, one of the ways I prepared for this was to look at the charters of Jacksonville, Miami, St. Pete, and Orlando, and Tampa, of course. All of them have very different forms of government. But a commonality that ran through them all, in their charters, they had a chief administrative officer position. And based on my understanding, maybe Ken can add to this, that tends to be the rule that there is a chief administrative officer as part of government, not just for council manager forms of government, but for also strong married forms of government around the state. effectively, Tampa already kind of has institutionalized a chief executive officer and their chief of staff. That goes back several administrations, but the challenge is the role of the chief of staff changes based on kind of the desire of the mayor for whatever role they were set chief of staff to fill. It's a little, so I would say that the lack of a chief administrative officer is a bit of an anachronism in Tampa's charter. It seems like most of the other major cities in Florida and many other cities have a chief administrative officer. So you have a chief of police, you have a chief of the fire, those are, you know, institutions of the city government, but then also, you know, all these other departments that aren't police and fire, you know, they have kind of this leadership role that fluctuates depending on who the mayor is.
I mean, I guess this would be equivalent to a COO, but my first question would be, what's the problem we're trying to solve? That would be my first question.
So,
Right, like in other words, I don't even know how I would answer this without knowing more. Like, why? Like, what's the problem? Like, right, and I've seen problems, but not, that's my experience, but that's not this about this in this case. So
It would have to be more in my mind than other cities have it.
right,
In other words, you know, I would want to hear from someone that would tell me why the city government would run more efficiently with that. Why would it be better with that? than having something else?
right. It was the issue that we saw of Rebecca.
I mean, having served under 3 different mayors, the mayors have very, very different styles, and I've had ones who you could not speak or even make eye contact with the mayor, you had to work directly through the chief of staff. And others who acted as the chief administrative officer. Both could be seen as positive, both could be seen as negatives, but I do think unless somebody can point out to a real problem, at the end of the day, the mayor is the person who's accountable, and I think they should be the person who is most comfortable with how they are setting up their team, whether they want people to go directly to them or directly to the chief administrative officer. I can see some benefits to it, but I still feel like we elect a strong mayor and they have strong ideas of how their team should run.
Enforcing this.
And there's been pros to cons to both sides.
Enforcing this doesn't guarantee their performance. It just doesn't.
If they don't utilize them, then.
Who you pay, how what they do, right? So, yeah,
You know, I could be persuaded if there's a reason.
I'll respond to some of that. One of the, I mean, you identified one of the challenges is that the role of the chief of staff does change, and I think there's an efficiency of government issue here. So if you have a chief of staff that has certain departments under the purview, for example, I think John Bennett has like purchasing, like the technology department, like a few random departments under him. His role has also changed over his course of tenure as chief of staff. So there's a certain, I think, stability issue and efficiency of government issue that having like a set position answers. I mean, you can imagine if there was a police chief whose role changed depending on the mayor, like that would cause organizational issues for that institution. And just like I said before, the police and the fire are institutions of the city, so are these kind of other, I guess, more operational planning, et cetera. That I think would benefit from the stability of a consistent position to fill a role that is kind of a little mushy right now.
Well, I do agree with that, but the position itself would only solve that as an issue if it was an institutionalized position that person was there, who the chief executive is, and I do liken this back to every 4 years we reinvent the White House. The chief of staff, and just like the vice president, has different roles depending on what the president wants. And I think that we do elect the chief executive, and with that, I believe we're empowering that individual to run their government in the manner they think is most effective, and if they fail at that, then we'll vote them out of office.
Okay, I'll throw another one at you. So say you have, we've been blessed with mayors that have really strong, I guess, institutional knowledge of the city, our current mayor being one of them, having served as a police chief. Let's say, for example, you have, I guess, a more populist mayor who, while they, may have some experience in politics, don't have all the organizational or institutional know-how to jump right in and start starting a city. It's a massive organization, especially a multi-billion-dollar organization. So having a position in the charter that says you're gonna have a non-political kind of administrative overseer, I think would support people who might wanna run for office or, are elected to become the mayor in a way that isn't served right now because of the varying ways the chief of staff office changes throughout administrations.
So I'd like to respond to that. I mean, I think the question is interesting because it says, should this position be established? I mean, I don't know, maybe sometimes it should. But I think the decision about whether or not to establish it should be made by the mayor. And I think I guess by default, the charter doesn't say that you can't establish a position like that. It just wouldn't be permanent from one administration to the next. They'd have to validate it again. So, I mean, there's nothing stopping them from doing it now. Is that, am I incorrect in saying that? Is that correct?
I mean, you typically, right, when you look at something like this, in organizational design, you add that layer to be more effective with the departments that come under it. It doesn't mean you need it for departments to be effective either. It really depends on how you structure your organization best effective. There are lots of ways to do that. So I guess the question is, do you really want to mandate this in the charter? It could be a great idea, and it may work for big organizations. Typically, something like this is used, certainly big corporations is. But are we really wanting to mandate this to future mayors? And I'm here generally speaking, no, because they might be doing an amazing job without it. So why is that being forced?
I think it gets down to, can we get more information about the question in the first place?
Right, because these are coming out.
What is happening now that is resulting in somebody asking the question?
It goes to my first question, which we don't know the problem. Right, and if it's a current problem, future mayors will have different strengths and weaknesses. We can go back and ask that question. Tell us, what are the issues that are behind this? That's an easy ask. Bill?
I was persuaded by what Alan said, and that is every mayor is going to, reinvent and appoint their own office, their own chief administrative officer. So, you run for mayor, you get elected, you're gonna bring in your person. It's not an institutional person. Because I understand, I was listening to you carefully, that you got someone who doesn't have a lot of inherent experience with how the city works, all of that. Hopefully they're astute enough to go get someone to advise them, but there's not gonna be someone there that's institutionally been with the city. So I'm not sure that even if we did, that solves your problem. So,
Well, and also I think the position, if the mayor, if a particular mayor wanted to create a council would have to approve that. As well. So the question could also be to that, is it something that we don't want future councils to take away either? So we just don't.
Did you just say that the council would have to approve the appointment of a CAO?
So, well, I mean, assuming that I understand that that's the department that are hired, and they would be subject to the same.
2/3 vote.
I guess confirmation is.
It would be
explicitly say that. I know that's how the city currently operates, it doesn't explicitly say that in the charter, so.
So two
Somebody
questions,
besides me should.
two questions around this. Do we feel we need more information on this? Or not? I'm getting mostly no's. So then the next question is, I think we're saying no to this being mandated by charter as a group, and I'm hearing, I'm just trying to just
count the votes, that's fine, yeah.
Answer is no, okay. All right, my suggestion, thank you guys, that helped, did that go better for you in terms of just being able to be heard?
Sure.
And
Good discussion.
that's to their credit and helping with.
Was that your idea or was that from the city council?
It was one that I brought up that we discussed that she agreed would be a good question to bring, so I brought it. Here we are.
Thank you for the assist with Ron. That sounds wrong. What I mean is just seeing you behind me. What I'm going to propose is we don't get into 5 point, the city attorney stuff, because we have a lot list to chew through, and yeah, guests coming back, and honestly, I mean, I'm high energy, but that's gonna push it. So what I would propose is moving to new business as our final, our penultimate section before adjournment to new business. I'll get all of this condensed into notes that land in here like we did before. Just give me a few days over the weekend, I'll work on it. But I'd like to move to new business. Is everyone okay with that? I'll hand it over to our esteemed chair to run this piece and come on, Ashley, perfectly.
All right, moving on to new business. Rodney? Do we gotta go in order, or is that?
You know my name's Robert, my rules, I'm sure you do. So, I think the question is, does anyone have anything? Right, that's the first question. Anyone says anything? Yeah.
Anybody have any business? Bobby?
So for my first piece of new business, I mentioned there was a memo sent out in October 2025 to the legal department that's gonna provide their non-substantive changes to the charter. And also, they did provide their recommendation to the one substantive change that they wanted. But unfortunately, they haven't made it to us in an official way. It was in that memo, we have to go dig it up, didn't know it existed, you wouldn't find it. So I've got kind of a two-part motion here. The first is that we get a memorandum to the whole team here, Rob, Ken, and all of us regarding what the substantive changes are that the city administration or legal department would like to see in the charter. So that's my first motion. Yeah, a motion to request that the legal department or the city administration provide their requested substantive changes to the charter.
Bobby, question for you, it exists, you know it exists, do you have a copy of it?
Yeah, I can provide, it's highlighted because I marked part of it, but I can provide that.
I'm sorry, you saying you have this already, or we need something to go?
Who's it from? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll read it out to you.
Bobby has it, we don't have it.
Okay.
The only reason I have it is I
He does.
follow this closely and found
Good
it,
for you.
so.
So we're just asking for a copy to be shared amongst everyone, is that what we're asking?
Yeah, just officially, like, you know, this is what we want, we haven't officially told you all yet, so here it is.
If we have it, can't Rob just distribute it to us?
But that would be my question.
That's fine too,
I
that's
think
fine
what
too,
you're
either way,
saying-
as long as the information gets out, that's all I really want to.
Okay.
I think what you're saying is there was direction to do that, but we have not received response, or you're saying that you already have the response.
There's two parts, so the first part, if I can turn there. Let's see. So there was file number E2025-8, chapter 1. Administration to submit their list of recommended changes to the charter. They did submit their one substantive change. Would you like me to provide this to you or just read it out loud?
Read out loud.
Read it out loud. Okay. As I partially read before, the city of Tampa administration does not recommend that the new charter review commission make any substantive changes to the charter, with one exception. Specifically, the administration recommends that the change made in 2023 to section 6.03 regarding the appointment of department heads be revised, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, that's kind of directly what we're going to talk about next time, I think. So, just to officially have that in everybody's hands. I mean, it's here. You can pull it up from a public record, or you can retrieve it and distribute it. So that's, I guess.
What's the easiest?
Yeah.
That's the easiest thing. I mean, however you want to get that out.
Just scan it.
You can just send us a copy of that.
I have it highlighted and.
Get a clean copy.
Okay,
Get a
I have a
clean
clean
copy.
copy, so
You can
can I just keep that out at the next meeting or?
Either way, I mean, you can.
Get it to,
Right,
you know,
send us-
on that folder with our stuff. and
Right.
Is there a reason why this wasn't presented to us?
I don't know.
Oversight.
So I mean, I guess the question is, was this a work product from someone and then, you know, whoever decided not to pass?
I don't know the backstory. All I know is that there was a motion made
they delivered this substantive change and
Motion.
When was this?
yeah, it's original motion initiated by Maniscalco Miranda on April 17th.
City council.
So-
I thought you said council, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, for the lack of clarity, was, yeah, city council requested that the administration provide their substantive changes that they would like to see to the charter. They did that in October.
Council,
Oh.
and then they didn't send it to us.
Oh, okay, now I got you.
Somebody could have seen, a lot of ways it could have gotten to us, it sounds like it just did.
It just didn't get to
We
us.
were appointed though after they had the full discussion.
Right.
So there's probably a lot of stuff that we don't.
Yeah.
Let's just look at it.
All right, so I withdraw my motion.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I withdraw my motion. I'll provide you a clean copy so that you can distribute that,
Okay,
right to the members.
that works. Any other new business? Did you say 2 items?
There's,
Sorry, that's your job.
You have the next
After.
Okay, go to your second item.
so there was a second, piece to that motion, from that same memo to city council. Hopefully that's clear now. Sorry for the lack of clarity. It noted legal staff are in the process of reviewing the charter to suggest non-substantive changes, housekeeping changes. There was a follow-up memo, I believe on the 23rd, before city council had a meeting regarding the charter review commission. But it's not clear to me that those non-substantive changes ever made it to the city council or anywhere else. And I'm gonna make a motion to request those. The reason why is I don't wanna run into a situation like Ron mentioned before, where we get through all this whole charter. The analogy I use is, you tell somebody not to, mess with your living room, you come home and the furniture's everywhere else, and they say, oh, but it's still the same furniture. Oh yeah, you rearranged the room, so now it's a different room. So I just wanna avoid that situation.
So what's your motion?
My motion is to request that the legal department provide their non-substantive changes to the charter,
Do I hear a second?
which they should have already done.
For clarification, that we request them to send it to us.
Yes, I'll take that friendly amendment.
Can I say a second?
I'll second.
Okay, discussion.
Are we saying that we know that there are non-substantive revisions, or are we asking them to review it and give us newly created non-substantive revisions?
City council asked them to do it. I think what we're asking is if you have anything,
Right, so if you have them, send them, Ron, we're not asking you to go create it.
Yeah.
No, exactly.
That's not what Bobby suggested.
Okay.
We need to clarify that though, because
Just
they
as,
have it, just forward information on what's relevant to our discussions.
Yeah, send it in.
Why we're trying to seek other people coming in and telling us and stuff, it's not, I don't know that you need a formal question for that, but maybe you do.
Okay.
if there's no changes, then they can let us know that there's no changes. I just would wanna know one way or another.
Yeah.
Alright, all in favor, say aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, the ayes have it.
Give the third.
I'm so sorry.
Alright, one more.
How many total do you have, just so we?
Yeah, this is the last one. This is the last one.
Why do you have to, we're all kicking out of there.
Last one quickly, Kathleen, I appreciate your comments in the beginning of our last meeting about trying to get people involved, in these discussions and participating in the process. I think the city's done a great job, we have stuff on the website, there's the portal, you can submit comments. But if you have a great dinner party and you don't invite anybody, then what's the point of having the party? I looked through, there's a weekly or like bi-monthly newsletter the mayor puts out, there's a, I think monthly or bi-monthly community engagement partnerships newsletter. I looked through all those back to October because we did that to our neighborhood association email, and from October to present day, there hasn't been any notice about charter review committee meetings. So I would like to motion that the administration consider maybe like a bi-monthly, open to discussion on the timing, advisement to the public in some sort of public facing newsletter that they produce, alerting people that there's a commission and when the dates are, et cetera.
Alright, the motion, do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should buy monthly or something. I would maybe be more amenable to just asking the administration to advertise this in whatever publications they put out, and just assume in good faith that they're gonna do it in whatever manner is appropriate, and if we don't feel like they are, we can bring it back up.
That's fine.
I don't think that bi-monthly, like, I don't know, I think that's kind of, you know, I think that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
There are a lot of ways they can,
Yeah, I just haven't seen it yet and I'd like to see it.
but I think just a request, you know.
One at a time, okay, Rob, thank you so much. Ron?
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand. These meetings are we asking for notice of the meetings to be sent out? Because the meetings are publicly noticed.
Say that again, Ron, I didn't hear the first part of what you said.
Oh, sorry, Bobby, what are we asking the administration to provide notice of?
The dates of the meetings and times.
What- and I-
Public input.
Rob, those are, I mean, these are public meetings, right? So they're publicly noticed in the same ways that all public meetings are, right?
Can I
I
respond
would
to
use
this?
it as raising awareness. This is a process, you can participate, you have interaction with the city that's worked or doesn't work, let us know, you know, because no changes are also good, you know, suggestions say, don't make this change. So it's sort of like just on all their vehicles of communication, just, you know, the students challenge, just communicate that this is going on and we would appreciate participation.
I think to Ron's point, these are properly noticed public meetings. And what you're asking for is something in addition to that, which it appears that is a process that currently exists through a variety of departments and staff, putting out additional supplemental notice that is not driven by a statute or an ordinance, you know? So in good faith, I think that's a request we can put out there and see what comes back.
Yeah. The problem is, I mean, unless you go on the city website, it's a grown volition and start checking things out, you may not even know about it, but if it comes to your inbox. All right, call the question.
I know. All right.
The chair has this piece.
What-
Let's, okay, and thank you so much. We did
Can-
this discussion. Here we
Can
go,
somebody
Ron.
can somebody just say what the motion is again?
Yeah, all right, so, I'm sorry, Madam Chair. To restate the motion to respectfully request that this administration broadly, promote these meetings in their public newsletters, to some degree.
The motion
Up to
is made to
them.
publicly
Encourage
promote
participation.
these charter review commission meetings in their public facing communications, such as newsletters and bi-weekly, monthly email blasts.
And then and just the only business item I have is that I believe we received 2 public comments for the specific requests for changes, so I don't wanna discuss them now, but through whatever means we can to at least evaluate them, is that maybe something for a future meeting, or can we add them to a list?
Did we finish
We
the,
don't this motion.
let's, okay, I'm sorry, I don't think we finished the all those in favor type stuff.
All right, you can do that. You have one more discussion? Okay, yes. Okay, motion is made and properly seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. All right, the ayes have it.
The 2 comments, can we look at them in a future meeting?
Yes. Can we add that to the agenda?
Track those.
Let me take those and I'll feed those into a process. Thank you for the reminder.
All right. I move,
I think we're about to move it now.
I move that we adjourn this meeting at 8:49 p.m.
Chair.
Motion made and properly seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. All right.